Even though we're probably going to turn it off until we start. You're so late. We're so late.
And my toes are asleep.
I need the Red Bull today. And I made sure I have plenty of water because bitch reading for a couple hours, throat's gonna get dry. Oh, I'm gonna definitely need that chapstick back today because...
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Yes. Hello. Hi, guys. Hello. Let me put it back just a little bit. Hi, guys. Got beverages to keep my throat moist, as we like to, say. Actually, I hate that word. I only started using that word because of you. I hate that word. Hi, guys. Who is ready to dive in to the notes? Who is ready? Now, I will tell you, once I start reading, feel free to discuss amongst yourselves, but we will be making it so we can't see the chat on our screen because I don't want anyone to accidentally say anything that might spoil something for her. So yeah. I hope that you guys understand that. You can still chat amongst yourselves, of course. We just won't be able to physically see it. Now, I've seen the notes. Like, I don't know if the notes that are in this are different than the notes I read the first time around, because I do know that there are, like, I guess the notes that were online are not necessarily the same things that were in the book. So, yeah, I'm not sure. Now, I also know that I think, what the hell just fell into my lap? Oh, it was the chapstick. Jesus Christ. I was like, what just touched me? I swear to God, that just freaked me out. Anyway, I also have heard that, yeah, it's my fan. Well, I'll probably turn off I'm so sorry that there's a background hum. I don't know if I should, low key just play, BTS, really, really low in the background just so that it can't hear that.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think I might do that because I know every single time I go live, if I don't have background music on, everyone always talks, what's that noise? And I'm like, oh, man, I'm sorry, guys. So, yeah, let me put, oh, I did this face mask thing today, and apparently there's still some on my hand. Okay. Yeah, let me put on, some just BTS just low-key in the background, guys. And that way something will be playing. Sorry if they're it's gonna be just a mix of songs, of course. I don't even know if you can hear that. Can you hear that? It's danger. Is it too loud, do you think? Or do you think that's fine? And is that masking the aircon, or not the aircon, but the fan sound? Is that okay? Did you do something to your hair, Caitlin? It looks good. She literally just pulled it in the back.
I just put it into two little thingies.
You can hear the music or you can hear the fan. Is it okay? I hope it's okay. It's fine. It's fine. That's fine, but no, it's not covering it. Jesus Christ. Okay, well, it's fine. Whatever. We're just going to keep it on. Okay. So I did hear, before we get started, I did hear that there might have been a couple of notes that, early notes that are not included in the book. I don't know if that's accurate or not. But I also got a message today basically saying that it's okay because everything in the book is pretty much the most important, pertinent things we need to know. So if I just read the book and then added persona notes and 7 notes at the end, I should be good. So I'm like, okay, you know what? Good. Good. Let's make this as simple as we can because I know that with all the notes, it kind of gets a bit kind of confusing. No, we are legit reading a book. So I will be reading the book. You all will be listening. She will be listening. Yes. So I've already read all the notes once. Just to reiterate, I have read all the notes once up into the end of this book, which would be before Persona came out. So this is a compilation of the most important events that occur. So that's what we are going to do. So I do have, like I said, I have beverages over here because I remember last time my throat got really dry reading for as long as I was reading when I did the Damien book. So I have plenty of beverages. So let's, I guess, get going. And I have a Red Bull because I don't want to put myself to sleep. Hopefully I don't put you to sleep.
Hopefully you don't put me to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have.
My voice is just so soothing.
Sure.
Okay. Let's do this. Is there a cover? Okay, there's a cover on this. Let me take the cover off so I don't mess it up. Okay. The notes. Oh, and I was reading. I saw a bunch of different versions. There was E, S, J, and I think K. And those are the different languages. Because I was like, oh my god, are there 4 versions? Like, am I supposed to have a different version of this? And then I looked it up and it was like, oh, it's just for the different languages that they were translated to. I was freaking out that I was still missing stuff. But it was just for... So I have the right one. I have the E. So I do have the right one. Let me crack open my drinks now. So I will be ready. Okay. Okay, so let's continue with the storyline. So let's go. Okay, so it starts off with prologue that says "Good Kid." So, and I think you guys were saying this is like October 10th, year 9. So this should be when he was 9 years old. Let me just make sure that is correct before we start, because I don't want to say it the wrong way. So I'm assuming this is October 10th, and year 9 means he was 9 years old. Yeah, okay, thank you, yes. So it is based on the age. Okay, so let's do this. Oh, I don't know if this is...
Yeah, I'm going to ask you to change it because I'm not going to be able to
I was going to say, I don't know if I can listen to in the background while trying to read this. Let me switch it off of because there's no way she'll pay attention if is on right now.
I will not.
Oh, but we do need to get rid of... How do we make it so I think it's hide chat? Hide all chat messages. Okay, we have turned off our chat, so I cannot see anything you're saying right now. So talk amongst yourselves. It would be lovely, but we have hid the chat on our end. I cannot view anything you're saying. If anyone else does join the chat, please explain to them what we're doing, that we've hidden the chat so we can't see their messages. Please help us out with that, since obviously we're not... Come on. Mic drop's on now. I can't pay attention.
You gotta
Jesus.
change the mic drop.
Okay, hold on.
Yeah, you gotta change that one too.
Freaking look here's on now. These are all like the bops. Are you kidding me?
I'm not gonna be able to concentrate.
I love this song. Okay, we have to change it. I need to have like a chill BTS playlist for this. Okay, louder than bombs. We're good. Okay, we can start now.
Okay.
Okay. October 10th, Jin's 9 years old. Let's go. We have to get out of here. I grabbed my friend's hand and ran to the rear door of our classroom. As I looked back while running down the hall, I saw men spilling out of the classroom chasing us. Stop! Stop right there! Their voices seemed to seize us by the back of our necks. We frantically thought of where to go as we darted down the stairs. The first destination that came to mind was the hill behind our school. We just needed to cross the playground and go out the school gate, and we would hit the bottom of the hill. Although it wasn't that high, it was pretty rocky and rugged. After running through the gate and rounding the corner at full speed, we ignored the walking trail and jumped right into the bushes. We waded through the dense limbs and kept running. We ran for what felt like forever, finally stopping when the footsteps behind us were gone. We collapsed on the ground, covered with layers of dried leaves, sweat dripping from our faces. They won't be able to follow us here, right? My friend nodded, breathing heavily. We lifted our t-shirts to wipe our faces with the hem. My friend's face was wet with sweat and tears. His wrists were bluish black with bruises. The neck of his shirt was ripped. Dad hasn't come home in over a week. Mom just keeps crying. The cleaning lady and driver stopped coming. Aunt says that Dad's company shut down. Those men came to our house last night. They kept pressing the bell and yelling for Dad. We stayed inside with all the lights turned off, and they kept swearing in front of the door. We couldn't sleep at all. My friend cried through his whole story. I couldn't think of anything to say. All I could do was to tell him not to cry. It was shortly after the class had started when the front door swung open and 4 or 5 men burst in. They were unruly and rash. Which of you is Mr. Choi's son? Come on out with us. Stunned, our teacher asked them to leave immediately, but they simply ignored her. We know you're here. Come out right now. Some of the kids leered at my friend sitting next to me and began whispering. The men noticed and came towards us. Can't you see we're in the middle of class? Please leave. Our teacher tried to block them, but one of the men pushed her hard into the whiteboard, and she fell to the ground. The man who shoved our teacher walked towards us in a threatening manner. All the students' heads turned towards us. The men snatched my friend's arm. We'll take you to your dad and get that money from him. Surely he won't turn away his son. The men were menacing, and the atmosphere was intimidating. I looked into my friend's face. He was trembling hard with his head bent low. He was my friend. I reached under the desk and grabbed his hand. He looked up and I pulled his hand. Let's run. The sky was getting darker and darker. No one seemed to be chasing us. We pushed our way through the trees and bushes to the walking trail. An empty lot with exercise equipment appeared before us. I leaned against the chin-up bar and my friend perched on a bench. I'm afraid you'll get in trouble because of me. My friend seemed uneasy when I told him I would be fine. All I could think of in the classroom was to get my friend out of there. I had to get him far away from those men. But as we started running away, I realized we had nowhere to go. Let's go to my place. It must have been around 9 p.m. as quite some time had passed since the sun went down, and I was starving. He must have been too. Aren't your parents home? Won't you get in trouble for taking me there? We can sneak in, and if we get in trouble, then we get in trouble. My house was not that far from the foot of the hill. Soon, my house came into sight in the distance. Go in right behind the gates right behind when the gates open and hide behind a tree. I'll open a window for you later. My mom was sitting on the couch in the living room. Where have you been? Your teacher called. Instead of answering her question, I told her I was sorry. It was usually the quickest way to end a conversation. Mom said Dad would be home any minute and went into her room. My room was opposite their room with the living room in the middle. I quickly went into my room and opened the window. We heard the front gate open while playing a computer game after a snack of bread and milk. My friend looked at me with frightening eyes. It's okay, Dad never comes into my room. The door of my room burst open before I finished speaking, and we both sprang up from our seats with fright. Are you Mr. Choi's son? Dad continued, waiting for an answer. Come on out, someone's here to take you. There was a man standing by the door. I thought he was Mr. Choi at first, but quickly realized he wasn't. He was one of those men who had marched into the classroom earlier. I looked up at Dad. He looked exhausted, with knitted brows and subtly quivering eyelid. It was better not to bother him when he was in that mood. While I was trying to read his face, the man came into my room and grabbed my friend's shoulder. I got in front of my friend. No, Dad, don't let this man take one away. He's one of the bad people. He just kept looking down at me and did not budge. Please help him, Dad. He's my friend. The man tried to pull my friend outside. I held onto my friend's arm, and Dad grasped my shoulder. He grasped it and pulled it hard. I had to let go of my friend's arm. He was being dragged out of the door. I squirmed and writhed to break free, but Dad strengthened his grip. It hurts, I screamed, but Dad didn't let go. He just grasped my shoulder even tighter, and tears ran down my face. I looked up at Dad. He was like a massive gray wall. His face was expressionless, with even the exhausted look now gone. He slowly opened his mouth with his eyes fixed on me. Jin, be a good kid. He still had that blank look. But I knew what to do to stop the pain. Jin. I turned my head at my friend's cry. He escaped the man's grip and was running towards my door. He was in tears. Dad, with his one hand still gripping my shoulder, slammed the door shut with his other hand. I apologized to him. I'm sorry, Dad. I won't make trouble again. The next day, the seat to mine was empty. My teacher said he transferred to another school. Okay, can you turn on the chat real quick? I just want to make sure that this is working and the sound's all good. Hey guys, we know that no one's moving behind us. It's fine. I think they're trying to say that things are moving behind you. We're not going to fall for it, but thanks for trying. Anyway, is this going okay so far? Does it sound all right? I just finished the prologue and I am on page 13, which is Shadow of My Child.
No sound. No sound. You guys can't hear us at all. Hold on, I'm gonna pull.
No, I think they're just saying that they can't hear me because they're trying to play a joke.
I dropped you, my bad.
No, seriously, guys, like, I don't, like,
I dropped
please
them.
let me know if you actually can't hear.
Oh, okay. Why does this keep tipping?
This isn't like a normal live. This would normally be like an actual video, but...
I dropped you guys twice. My bad, bro.
Okay, thank you, guys. Yeah, sorry if we dropped you just now when it was a loud sound. I apologize for that. Yeah, this isn't like a normal live where we're like interacting. This is just where we're just... It's easier for us to do this live than to actually record a 2-hour video, edit it, post it, upload it, you know what I'm saying? So that's, okay, you're just having fun. Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure, like, everything was actually good. We're about to turn the chat back off, but I just wanted to make sure, I wasn't reading, like, a bunch of stuff, and there was actually, like, a problem, and you guys couldn't hear us, and I couldn't communicate with us because we turned off the chat, so I just wanted to make sure. All right, good stuff, guys. We're going to turn off the chat again and continue. We are on page 13 for anyone who wants to join. We are starting Shadow of My Childhood. And we are totally... Persona's about to come on. We are going to need to skip this, too, because we got another bang and bop, and we're not going to be able to concentrate with her listening to RM rapping. That just won't work.
That won't happen.
So she will not be listening to me. That's for sure. 21st century girl. Okay, we're going to leave it. But this is another... Don't be... Do I need to just turn off the music altogether?
Yes, please do.
I'm going to have to turn off the music?
Please do.
This bitch can't pay attention for shit. All right, I'm apparently going to have to turn off the music.
Okay, that's so
Y'all
much better.
will just have to hear the fan in the background. I'm sorry.
You'll be okay.
She's like, I can't concentrate. BTS is playing in the background. You want me to pay attention? Wait,
you know how I was trying to listen, and then it was there, and I was.
She can't multitask. Okay. Shadow of My Childhood. Jin is now 10 years old in this. This is July 23rd.
Okay.
It all happened when I counted to 4. I was counting some fruit, maybe tomatoes or melons. I'm not sure. 4. As soon as I said it, a vision from my childhood appeared before my eyes. I was holding hands with someone. It was the first day I went to an amusement park with my mom. Oh, and by the way, sorry, this is J-Hope. I said Jin was 10. So I don't know if Jin is 10 or if J-Hope is 10. But someone's 10. I would assume it's... Hold on. Can we turn on the chat real quick? Sorry.
Hi again.
It's Jin. Okay, so although we're talking about J-Hope, at this point in the story, Jin is 10 years old. Is that what that is? Just wanted to make sure. All the years are based on Jin's age, but this particular chapter is about J-Hope. Correct? Always based on Jin's age. This chapter is J-Hope. Okay, making sure.
Okay.
And just we're going to turn off the chat again.
Bye.
We'll be back in a little bit. Also, I'm just going to be saying their stage names just because I'm horrible at their real name pronunciation. Yeah, I'll be using JK because I know people hate when I say Jungkook because I use hard Ks whenever I say it instead of like the gook. You could get the Gs, like, you know what I'm saying? So I'm just going to say like nicknames and stage names because I'm horrible about the translation. So obviously this says his real name. I'm going to say J-Hope. Okay, so this is Jin is age 10 now. Ooh, what is this? Ooh, I forgot I had him. I forgot that was in my book. Oh, look at him. Okay. I need you, girl. Okay. So, Jin is 10. This chapter is based off of J-Hope, July 23rd. I'm going to start over. It all happened when I counted to 4. I was counting some fruit, maybe some tomatoes or melons. I'm not sure. 4. As soon as I said it, a vision from my childhood appeared before my eyes. I was holding hands with someone. It was the first day I went to an amusement park with my mom. I was mesmerized by the colorful flags and rows of shops. People dressed like clowns and waved at me, and exciting music reverberated in every corner. My mom stopped in front of a merry-go-round. White horses were going round and round under the sparkling lights. I was about to ask, Mom, are we here to ride this? When someone called me. J-Hope. I looked up. It was my teacher. My classmates were all looking at me with bewildered eyes. The vision from my childhood disappeared. My teacher urged me to continue, and I began counting again. 5, 6. My mom appeared before my eyes again. She looked exactly the same as a minute ago. Her face was shaded as she was standing in front of the light, and a breeze fanned her hair. Mom handed me a chocolate bar. J-Hope, close your eyes tight and don't open them until you count to 10. 7, 8, 9. I stopped there. My teacher made a gesture signaling for me to go on. My classmates stared at me again. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. Mom's face blurred. It felt as if she would never come looking for me if I finished counting to 10. I fell to the ground. Okay, that is... okay, you know how hard that was to, like, read and not to try not to cry? Okay, let me take a sip of something. Okay. Jin is still 10. This chapter is Taehyung. Sorry, V. And this is December 29th. I flung off my shoes. I'm sorry, just kidding. I flung off my shoes, hurled my bag to the floor, and ran into the room. Dad was really home. I had no time to think how long he'd been gone and where he was coming from. I just threw myself into his arms. It all became blurry from that point. I wasn't sure whether I smelled liquor on his breath first, heard him cursing first, or got slapped on my face first. I didn't know what was happening. His alcohol breath was repulsive, and his breathing was hard. His eyes were bloodshot. He had a scruffy beard. A massive hand slapped my face. "What are you looking at?" He slapped me again. Dad grabbed me by my shoulders and picked me up. I was almost face to face with him. Bloodshot eyes and scruffy beard. He wasn't my dad. Well, he was, but he wasn't. My feet dangled in the air. I was so frightened that I couldn't even cry. The next moment my head hit the wall so hard, and I crumpled to the floor. It felt as if my head had cracked. I could hardly see straight. It became pitch black. Okay, Jin is 11 now. April 6th. This is Jimin. I went out the front gate of the grass flower arboretum. I think it's arboretum. I went out the front gate of the glass flower arboretum alone. The sky was cloudy and it was a little chilly, but I was feeling good. It was school picnic day, and as usual, my parents were too busy to make it. This brought me down, but I received high evaluations in the flower drawing contest, and my friends' mothers all told me, "You're so mature and gentle." I thought I was pretty cool. "Jimin, wait here. It'll be just a minute," my teacher said after the picnic was over and we got ready to leave the arboretum. Hope I'm saying that right. Arboretum? Whatever. I didn't wait. I knew I could find the way on my own. I held onto the straps of my backpack with both hands and took confident steps. Everyone seemed to be staring at me, so I kept my shoulders back. After walking a while, it began to rain. My classmates and their mothers had all left, and no one paid attention to me. My legs hurt. I crouched under a tree. The rain began to pour down more and more heavily. I stretched my neck to check if anyone was coming from either side, but no one was around. I began to run, holding my backpack over my head with both hands. The rain kept falling harder and harder. My pants got soaked in the rain after only a few steps. No shop, house, or bus stop came into sight. In the far distance, I could see a gate. I ran towards it without thinking. My hands felt numb from gripping the backpack. I was soaking wet, and my teeth were chattering. On top of the gate was a sign that read, "Grass Flower Arboretum." It was the back gate. There was a small warehouse just inside the gate. Jin is now 12, July 12th. Just kidding. Jin is now 12, July 21st, and this is back to Jin. The entrance door kept opening and closing. I kept staring at it, sitting in the airport waiting room. People with suitcases passed by, some wearing sunglasses. The electronic display board continued changing with arrivals, delays, and cancellations. The driver was murmuring with his eyes fixed on cell phone. No words from him yet. I looked down at my watch. It was more than an hour past the time that Dad had promised to arrive. As long as I could remember, I was always by myself. Dad was busy and Mom was indifferent. They told me to do what I was told and to not try anything else. When I disobeyed, they scolded me with silence. I wanted to please my parents. Mom died not so long ago. Dad told me not to cry, and he didn't cry himself. I tried to obey him, but it wasn't easy. He decided to send me to my maternal grandmother's in the U.S., and he didn't seem very sad about it. Dad's driver handed me my passport. It was time to leave. I looked back as I headed for the departure gate. The entrance door closed, and the driver waved at me. The airplane finally began to speed down the runway. Dad didn't come. I looked out the tiny window by my seat. Clouds passed by, and the sky turned pitch black. The flight attendant brought me a meal, and the juice cup fell when we hit turbulence. Flustered, I asked for some napkins. The flight attendant asked me if I was okay. My fried rice and meat were soaked in juice, my hands were sticky, and my pants were all wet. "No," I whispered back, but the flight attendant didn't seem to hear. She said not to worry as she took away my tray. I nodded, and I kept looking down at the floor. Okay, Jin is now 16. June 21st, RM. I darted down the stairs from the 13th floor. I was out of breath and my legs were trembling. I collapsed in the shadow of the entrance to the apartment building. I started late today because school got out later than usual. I had to go full speed to post the flyers in all 4 apartment buildings by the deadline. If I didn't, my boss would be waiting for me with a long lecture. I had laboriously coaxed him into hiring a middle school student. Surely I couldn't let myself get fired at this point. Mom quit her job at the restaurant last week. We had to pay for the doctor's bills for Dad, not to mention the overdue electricity and gas. I kept nodding off in the shadow. There were kids playing basketball in the far distance. I got up again. Time to run. I recited to myself, I must do it. I can do it. Jin is 16. September 19th, Suga. Flames were devouring my house. Just this morning, it was whole and intact, but now it was aflame. People who recognized me ran towards me, shouting unintelligible words. The neighbors stamped their feet, looking nervous. The fire truck couldn't get to my house because the accessway was blocked. I stood there, frozen. It was the end of summer and the first days of fall. The sky was blue and the air was crisp. I didn't know what to think, what to feel, or what to do. Suddenly, I thought of Mom. At that very moment, my house collapsed with a thundering crash. It was completely enveloped in flames. Or rather, it was a giant flame itself. The roof, pillars, walls in my room tumbled down one by one as if they were made of sand. All I could do was gaze at them with vacant eyes. People barged past me. I heard them saying the fire truck finally got through. Someone grabbed me by the shoulder and asked urgently, "Is someone in there?" I just stared blankly at her. "Is your mom in there?" She shook me hard by the shoulder. "No, there's no one. There is no one," I heard myself saying. "What do you mean?" It was one of the ladies from my neighborhood. "What happened to your mom? Where is she?" "There is no one." I wasn't sure what I was saying. Someone barged past me again. Jin is 17, September 11th, JK. I waited for 10 days, but the birthday card never came. I opened the bottom drawer and lifted a notebook to find 4 cards. JK, happy birthday, from Dad. I read these 5 words over and over again. It was winter, and I was 7 years old. The voices from the living room woke me up. My room was in the attic, and I could reach my parents' room by going down 5 stairs and opening the sliding door. I reached out to open the door and stopped. Although I was still young, I could sense from the heavy atmosphere seeping through the door that this wasn't a good time. Dad said that it was too difficult to go on and that the world was too heavy for him to bear. Mom didn't reply. She was probably crying silently or not moving at all. A long silence ensued. Dad said he'd be crushed if he went on living like this and he should leave now. Mom vehemently, I can never say that word, very much protested, calling him the most irresponsible man. Then I heard my name. What are you going to do about JK? I waited for a long time behind the sliding door, but Dad didn't answer. Then I heard the sound of the front door opening. I'm completely empty. There's nothing I can do for JK. Those were my dad's last words. I ran back up the stairs and into the attic. I moved my chair against the wall right under the window, and I stood on it. Dad was walking down the sloping road. First his legs disappeared, then his waist, chest, and shoulders. It seemed as if an unknown world behind the road was slowly swallowing him whole. Someone jerked the door of my room open, and I instinctively pushed the drawer with my foot. It was my mom. She said no birthday card will ever come, and Dad was just that kind of person. It was her usual repertoire. Dad was feeble-minded, incompetent, and most importantly, a social misfit who deserted us. Mom was right. No birthday card will ever come. I was the world that was too heavy for him to bear. The world that he gave up on. A child who can never be the reason to endure it all. That was me. Okay. We are now on chapter 25. Those are all really heavy. Oh my, I feel like I'm cross-eyed. Hold on. Every time I'm reading for a long time and then I look up at the camera, my eyes have to like refocus because I'm looking at something far away rather than something close up. So that was kind of, I guess, a little background into little bits of, it's a lot, right? Yeah. Into little bits of their kind of childhood. So there's the tissues are over there. It's a lot, isn't it? I've read this before, so luckily I've already been through all of this. But yeah, it's a lot. Like at each one of them going through like Well, don't freaking... You're going to make me cry. God damn it. Just give me one just in case, because you're crying a lot, and that's going to get me. Oh, man.
I'm good.
Are you, though? You're not. Yeah. So for those of you who are just now joining us, I've already read this. I went through this process like a year ago. I lost most of my footage to it, unfortunately, but I have gone through this already. So yeah, I totally understand what you're going through because I went through the exact same thing. It's just heavy. Have these kids and the shit that they dealt with.
Okay.
You sure?
I'm good.
Okay.
We can continue.
Do we want to turn on the chat and see if they have anything to say? Nope.
Nope.
No.
Not doing that. We can continue now.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I'm on chapter 25 if anyone has the book and they want to join in on reading. This says, everything started from here. Okay. 19 years old. Jin was 19 years old. This is March 2nd, and we are back to Jin.
Okay.
I stepped into the principal's office following Dad. It smelled like mildew. It had been 10 days since I came back from the U.S. I had just found out the day before that I'd be one grade lower because of the different school systems. Please take good care of my son. I shuddered at my dad's hand on my shoulder. School is such a dangerous place. It needs to be tightly controlled. The principal looked me in the eye. Wearing a black suit, his wrinkly cheeks in the corner of his mouth quivered slightly every time he opened it. The inside of his blackened lips were even darker. Don't you agree, Jin? As I squirmed at his abrupt question, Dad tightened his grip on my shoulder, and I felt a twinge on the back of my neck. I'm sure you'll behave yourself. The principal, obstinately tried to make eye contact, while Dad tightened down on me further. I clenched my fist as his grip almost fractured my shoulder blade. You know you have to just keep me informed, right? You'll be a good student, right? The principal stared me down without a hint of a smile. Yes. As soon as I squeezed out the answer, the pain in my shoulder disappeared. The Dad and the principal roared with laughter. I couldn't even raise my head. I kept looking down at Dad's brown shoes and the principal's black shoes. The toe caps of their shoes shined brightly, though it was a mystery to me where the light was coming from. Okay. So Jin was 19. This is March 12th, and we are back to Jimin. It had been several days since the new semester began, but my classmates were still strangers to me. It was not hard to guess that they were gossiping about me. I tried to act indifferent, but to no avail. We heard you live in an apartment across the river. Why did you come to this school? I pretended I didn't hear the question. I had nothing to say. I just continued walking past with my head bent. Hey, didn't you hear me? I quickened my pace. I had transferred from one school to another as I had been in and out of the hospital. There were no more schools left near my neighborhood to transfer to. I headed for the classroom turned storage room that I cleaned as a penalty for being late for school. As I opened the door, I was startled to hear voices inside. Who could be here at this hour? I was about to silently close the door and turn around when someone called my name. Hey, you're Park Jimin, right? There were senior students who cleaned the classroom with me for being tardy. I wasn't sure whether I should answer them or just leave. Somebody tapped me on my shoulder. Aren't you going in? Without realizing it, I walked into the classroom. It's good to see you again. Don't you remember me? I'm V. We're in the same grade. Before I knew it, I was sitting down on a chair. The storage room door continued to open and close. 7 students who did the cleaning together were all there. Nobody asked questions. We just listened to music, read books, danced, and fooled around. It felt as if we had been hanging out together forever. Okay. Jin is 19. This is June 12th and Suga. I cut school without thinking, but I had nowhere to go. It was hot, I had no money and nothing to do. It was RM who first proposed we go to the sea. The others seemed excited about it, but I didn't care either way. Do you have any money? Hearing my question, RM told the others to dig into their pockets. A few coins and even fewer bills. We can't go. Well, why don't we walk? That must have been V. RM's expression seemed to tell him to use his head and think before speaking. Everyone but me was jabbering, laughing for no reason, and romping around. I fell back as I wasn't in the mood. The sun was boiling. It was midday, and there was no shade under the trees. The asphalt road had no sidewalks, and every time a car passed, it would kick up a thick cloud of dust. Let's go there. It was V, or was it J-Hope? I wasn't paying attention. It must have been one of those two. I don't see any point in going there. I should just tell them to go on without, or should I just tell them to go on without me? I turned my head and almost bumped into someone. It was Jimin. He stood there as still as a statue. His face was trembling down to the smallest muscle as if he had seen something terrifying. Are you okay? He seemed unaware of this question. His gaze was fixed on a signpost that read 2.1 kilometers to Grass Flower Arboretum. Sweat was dripping off his face, which had turned ashen, as if he was going to pass out. Park Jimin, I called again, but he didn't budge. He just stood there, glaring at the signpost. Hey, it's too hot to go to the Arboretum. Let's just go to the sea, I tried to say as flatly as possible. I didn't know what the Grass Flower Arboretum was, but I had an instinctive feeling that we should avoid it. We're short on cash, J-Hope objected. We can walk. It was Taehyung again, or V again. I think we'll be able to figure something out once we get to the train station. Of course, we'll have to skip dinner, RM chimed in. JK and V whined. Jimin snapped out of it after everyone started heading for the station. Jimin, with his head bent deep and his shoulders hunched, looked like a little kid. I looked back at the signpost. The words Grass Flower Arboretum were slowly disappearing from our view. So, they hang out in an empty classroom together. Something happened at the Grass Flower Arboretum that we don't know of, but it obviously affected Jimin. And what else so far? I think that's it so far, other than like their past. Oh, and the principal and the dad basically want. Well, he's like, I just need to know what's going on at the school, and the dad's like, you'll be good, right? You'll tell him, basically. So they want Jin to
snitch.
Yeah. So okay, so that's what we have going on so far. Okay, Jin is 19, June 12th, JK. The sun was still beating down when we arrived at the train station by the sea. Our shadows were almost invisible, hovering around our feet. There was nowhere to hide from the sun. I thought I heard the roar of waves, and soon a stretch of beautiful sandy beach unfolded before our eyes. It was the beginning of summer. Early vacationers were already perched under parasols. There's something about the sea that makes me well up with emotions. V and Hobie yelled out in excitement and dashed ahead. As they beckoned, Jimin and Jin joined them. They called out to me, JK. I waved at them and smiled joyfully. Or I smiled to pretend that I was joyful. I was still clumsy at revealing my feelings and adapting to strange environments. Someone once told me that I acted a little timid. I acted like a timid, intimidated child. It was the same that day. I felt a bit ill at ease in the presence of others. I didn't belong there. There wasn't much to do on the beach, our impulsive destination. Let's race, Hobie suggested suddenly and ran ahead. Everyone else gave chase but soon gave up. It was just too hot. RM brought a torn parasol he found somewhere. All 7 of us lay down under the parasol. Sunlight passed through the tears in the parasol. Round spots of sunlight continued to move bit by bit, and we wriggled to dodge them. Do you want to go see this rock? Hobie held up his phone. There was a photo of a large rock on the beach. They say if you yell out your dreams towards the sea while standing on this rock, it will come true. Jimin took the phone and looked at the photo. Isn't it a bit far? It's at least 3.5 kilometers from here. Sugar rolled over. I'm not going. I don't have any dream in the first place. Even if I did, I wouldn't walk 3.5 kilometers in this heat. No way. V sprang to his feet. I'm going. We began to walk under the torn parasol. The sandy beach was burning under the scorching sun, and the air was so hot we could barely breathe. We marched on the beach like stragglers, with our feet sinking into the burning sand. Hobie attempted to make jokes, but no one responded. V dropped down to the ground and declared he was giving up. RM picked him up to his feet again and gave him a push on the back. All of our faces were bright red and dripping with sweat. We tried fanning ourselves with the hem of our t-shirts, but it only blasted us with more hot air. Nevertheless, we kept moving forward. Sometime before, I'd asked the others what their dreams were. Jin said he dreamed of becoming a good person. Suga said it was okay to have no dream. Hobie just wished to be happy. And RM. What did he tell us? I can't recall, but it was nothing special. Basically, none of us really had a dream to pursue. So why were we walking along this hot beach under the scorching sun to get to some rock 3.5 kilometers away, which supposedly makes dreams come true? Along the way, we threw off the parasol that RM, Hobie, and Jin had taken turns holding. It did block the sun a little, but it was just too heavy with its steel handle. Stop doing that. That's what Suga said to me while we were taking a short break after ditching the parasol. At first, I was puzzled. In fact, I rarely talked with Suga, and I didn't even realize he was talking to me. Suga showed me his fingers. They'll become like mine. He also had raw cuticles from biting his nails. I hesitantly put my hands into my pocket. I didn't respond because I didn't know what to say. What's your dream? Suga asked. You didn't tell us yours. He didn't seem genuinely interested in my answer. He just seemed to be asking to keep the conversation going. I don't know. I've never thought about it. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. By the way, what is a dream? I asked after some hesitation. Suga answered in his drawling voice. I told you, I don't have one. No, I mean, I hesitated and continued. I was wondering what a dream is. What do people mean by a dream? He looked at me some and then turned his gaze towards the sky, frowning. Something you want to achieve, I guess. Hobie took over, waving his mobile phone at us. The dictionary definitions are first, an imaginary series of events you experience while you are asleep. Second, a situation or ideal you hope to realize. And third, false expectations or thoughts that are almost unlikely or completely unlikely to turn into reality. Isn't this definition odd? How can something that is unlikely to turn into reality be called a dream? Hobie responded. People sometimes tell you to wake up from your dream. So, if you're dreaming of turning back and going home before we get to the rock, wake up from your dream. Some of us laughed out loud, but the rest showed no reaction, probably because they had no more energy left. That's weird. How can something that you want to achieve most in your life and something that's unlikely to come true both be called a dream? Suga said, giggling. Maybe it means that people are that desperate. They just can't give up on their dreams even though they know they won't come true. Don't ever try to have a dream. I looked at him in surprise. How come? Suga had started biting his nails and feeling conscious of my glance. He put his hands in his pockets. Because it's tough having one. I was curious about why he bit his nails, but I didn't ask. Instead, I looked down at my own fingers. It had been a habit of mine since childhood to hurt myself. I don't remember when it first started. All I can recall is the distinct feeling of cutting my finger on a knife one day. After the painful sensation passed, blood spurted from the wound. It felt numb and tingling at the same time. My mom took me to the hospital, and I had the wound stitched up, sterilized, and dressed. She pretended to make a fuss in front of the doctor, but didn't make me dinner or help me take my medicine after we had gotten home. I didn't really expect her to, though. She had been like that since Dad left. The wound healed very slowly because I kept pressing it with the tip of my nail. Every time I pressed the wound, a sharp pain shot through my finger. It sometimes hurt so much that I was close to tears, but it also helped me feel awake again. Even now, I sometimes feel hollow. Everything seems meaningless and all the energy drains out of me. How much longer do we have to walk? At V's question, Hobie seemed to be at a loss. It's odd. I'm sure it's somewhere around here. We all stood there and looked around. Only the sound of the waves breaking on the beach filled the void of the silence under the blue sky. Hundreds of thousands of pebbles were scattered across the beach like grains of sand. The rock in the photo was nowhere to be seen. Should we keep going just a bit further? I can't move another step. I'm starving and thirsty. In the middle of our conversation, Jimin heaved a sigh with his eyes fixed on his phone. V, who was looking at Jimin's phone, violently kicked at a pebble with a hollow face. Jimin read the article out loud. A high-end resort will be built on this beach, and the construction company blew the rock into pieces because it obstructed the view from the first and second floors of the resort. We took a sweeping look around all at once. Yellow bands were installed all along the beach to mark that area was designated as a development zone, with mammoth excavators roaming about in the background. A sign that read, Seawall Construction, came into view. Well, I guess we came to the right place, Hobie said, tapping a pebble with the tip of his sneaker. All these pebbles scattered across the beach must be what's left of that blown-up rock. It's okay. There's no such thing as a rock that makes dreams come true anyway, RM consoled Hobie, lightly tapping his shoulder. We didn't have any dreams in the first place. No possibility of realizing them even if we did. It's a luxury for us to dream. Everyone tried to say something positive, but it wasn't working. We weren't expecting much, but we didn't come all the way here to see this either. Suga, who told me not to have dreams because they're too tough, was no different. After looking at the sea blankly for some minutes, he began to bite his nails again. He seemed completely unaware of what he was doing. Suga, he turned to look at me. Don't. My next words were interrupted by the loud crash of a drilling sound. We all turned around at the same time, and they were resuming construction work. The loud crashing sound the loud crash sounded as if it was coming from a massive solid rock being drilled and made the surrounding air roll and pitch heavily. Sugar frowned and tapped my shoulder. What did you say? Sugar mumbled something. Don't do that. I cupped my hands around my mouth and yelled. Sugar didn't seem to have heard me and shook his head again, frowning. I was going to yell again, but he had already stopped biting his nails. I could see the sea beyond his shoulders. The countless pebbles crunched under my feet. The rock must have been huge, powerful, and old enough to make people's dreams come true, but now it was no more than a pile of gravel. Is the world tough for you too? I asked. As expected, the earth-shaking rumble of the drill swallowed my voice. Sugar's puzzled look told me he didn't understand. I screamed again. Do you want to give up on this world too? He murmured something this time, but I couldn't make out what it was. I shook my head, and Sugar yelled again. Looking at our mime, Hobie and V burst into laughter. Their laughter was also inaudible, but their faces showed their mood. The next minute, we were all looking out into the sea and shouting our dreams. Hobie covered his ears with both hands and opened his mouth wide. He seemed to be competing with the drilling sound, but it was inaudible. It was the same for V, Jimin, and RM. Each of us cried out a story that would never reach any destination. I was standing behind Suga and Jin at first and walked past them to the point where the waves rolled in. All of my senses came alive. The others' voices became entangled and formed an intricate web with the somewhat fishy but refreshing scent of the sea and the strong breeze winding around my fingers. Before I knew it, I was screaming out into the sea. Amidst the thundering, drilling sound, I couldn't even hear what my dream was. Then the drilling sound stopped as abruptly as it had begun. The entire world became silent as if noise had been cut away with a clean knife, just like that. But our cries were not in perfect order. V coughed hard as if he swallowed the wrong way while trying to close his mouth in a hurry. Someone's voice made an absurdly high note. The last word was, "Please," by Jin. Instantly, we all closed our mouths. For a fleeting second, no one moved. Then we all burst into laughter together. We held our sides with laughter, all pointing at one another. Let's take a photo here, at Jin's suggestion. We stood in a row with the sea as our background. Jin set the timer on the camera and came running up. Click. This day in the sweltering heat of the early summer became imprinted in our memories in this photo. The way back was shorter than the way to the rock. Just when we thought we were about halfway, the deserted parasol appeared. Soon the train station came into sight. Can I keep this photo? Jin took the Polaroid out of his bag and wrote June 12th on the back. Your dream that you yelled out, it will come true. I looked up at him. Do you know what I said? Jin just tapped me on the shoulder without saying anything and strode ahead. I need to break my... I'm trying to, focus and look at the camera. I feel like I'm looking... Do I look cross-eyed right now? No. Okay, I feel like I look cross-eyed right now. Do we want to take a moment and talk with anybody?
Sure.
Okay, let's talk with you guys for a quick minute. Okay, we turn the chat back on. Hello, how are you? Once again, make sure that you don't say anything that could spoil anything for Caitlin, since she has not read these books yet. Hello. So, everyone good so far? Are we okay to continue? Hi, thank you, Priscilla. We are on we're about to start page 39. I don't know if we'll finish reading the entire book today. It is 229 pages.
I'm going to say no.
I'm going to say we're not going to read it all today. But I'm thinking maybe we're already on 39, and so I'm thinking maybe we can make it maybe halfway. Mm-hmm. That'd be great if we could make it halfway today. That'll be our goal, to make it halfway today. So yeah. Don't worry, the chat's just crying over here. Yeah, they've been through a lot, that's for sure. But I'm glad that they've all found each other, the little misfit group of friends that, have each other to rely on. Yeah. So, and of course, if you have just joined and you're a little late, you can always rewatch this live. You may not remember on lives, it's really weird. YouTube takes forever to process the live chat replay. So you can definitely still rewatch it. You just may not be able to view everyone's live chat replay until YouTube finally processes that portion of the video. But you'll still be able to, yeah, you'll still be able to watch at least the story back. Okay. Okay, so I think we're good so far.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, JK thinking about pain and such is telling without even fully saying it. Yeah. Okay, so I'm not putting you to sleep yet. Is the story interesting enough to where you're not being put to sleep?
I'm also, anytime I feel like I'm getting tired, sorry.
I just whack at each in the head. That's my solution.
I look at the book and I start reading along with you.
Okay, good.
Okay, turning off the chat again. Bye.
Turn off the chat again so we don't see anything, so we don't distract ourselves. I'm drinking Red Bull, watermelon Red Bull, so I can try to stay awake. I did get a good night's sleep last night. I got 8 hours of sleep last night. Woohoo! But I got 4 hours the night before that, so if you let air back in, it'll stop doing that, I think. Undo the top. Or you can just keep playing with the bottle, you know? You like making it wiggle? Okay. I mean, whatever you're into.
We don't discriminate in this household.
No. Okay, let me adjust. Okay. Okay, wait, I feel like I want like regular water. Hold on. Ooh, I'll use Hobie as my bookmark. Okay.
There you go.
I need some regular water. I need a yawn. Oh, sorry. 1 second, guys. Okay. Let's continue. No, I just yawned. That's late. You're going to make me yawn again. Okay. Let's continue. We are now on... Jin is 19 still. The date is June 25th. Okay? And we are on Jin. No one was there in the classroom turned storage room. We never made any appointments in advance, but it was mostly filled with people and the murmuring of voices. Such silence was rare. As I stepped inside, I detected a potted plant by the window. Who could have brought a plant in here? The room was always dark with no electricity, and the green leaves appeared even greener in the half-light coming through the dirty windows. I took photos with my phone. As expected, the photos didn't turn out well. I always thought photos fall short of capturing what the human eye saw. They do sometimes. When I approached the pot, I could see the letter H written on the floor, half covered by the pot. I lifted the pot to discover Hobie's plant scribbled there. I giggled. I should have known. I repositioned the pot to completely cover the scribble and looked around. I hadn't noticed it before, but the windowsills were still covered with graffiti and doodles. The windowsills, the walls, and even the ceiling were covered with phrases like admission to school, admission to college, or death. Proposals for unrequited loves, dates, and countless names that were hardly recognizable. The storage room must have served as a normal classroom just like any other. It must have seen students file in for classes every morning and leave again in the afternoon. On back-to-back school days, students must have filled this room, which had been empty throughout the months of vacation, chattering in a roar. Some of them must have been punished for being tardy and ditching class just like us. Did this classroom see teachers who used violence, endless tests, and homework? Were there students like me who ratted out their friends to the principal? Suddenly I began to wonder if Dad's name was on the wall. Dad also graduated from the school. He believed it added to the prestige of our family to attend the same school and university from generation to generation. I browsed each and every name and finally found his name amongst those written in the middle of the left column. Underneath his name, it read, "Everything started from here." Okay, page 41. End of summer, beginning of solitude. End of summer, beginning of solitude. V. Jin is now 20. The date is March 20th. Okay, so on V. I ran down the hall, making a clumping sound, and took a slide at the end. RM was standing in front of our classroom. Our classroom, that's what I called the classroom turned storage room. The classroom for all 7 of us. I quietly tiptoed up to RM to try to knock his hat off. "Principal," I heard the urgent voice through the slightly open window of our classroom after I've taken about 5 steps towards RM. It sounded like Jin. I stopped there. Jin is talking with the principal? In our classroom? About what? I heard mine and Suga's name and saw RM breathe in heavily. Sensing our presence, Jin threw open the door. He had a phone in his hand. He appeared startled and flustered. I hid myself in one corner and watched them. Jin was opening his mouth, seemingly to make an excuse for himself, and RM interrupted him. "It's okay, there must have been a good reason." I couldn't believe it. Jin told the principal what Suga and I were up to the last few days, about how we ditched class, climbed over the school wall, and got into a fight. And RM was saying it was okay. What are you doing here? I turned around in surprise to find Hobie and Jimin. Hobie gave me a look that said he was even more surprised than I was and put his arm around my shoulders. He dragged me into the room. RM and Jin looked over at us. RM beamed at me as if nothing strange had just happened. At that moment, I sorted out my thoughts. RM must have his reasons. He's much more knowledgeable and intelligent and mature than I am. And this is our room. I walked towards RM and Jin, smiling, that silly-looking smile of mine everyone called a square smile. I decided not to tell anyone about their conversation that I had just overheard. Okay, so Jin is 20. The date is May 15th, and we are now on RM. I cut across the classroom turned storage room, which served as a hideout for the 7 of us, straightening up some chairs along the way. I picked up an overturned desk and wiped the dust off with my palms. Today was my last day at this school. My family had decided to move 2 weeks ago. Dad had developed complications, which we couldn't afford. Our rent had been overdue for months. Our neighbor's goodwill and the pay from my part-time job at the gas station couldn't cover it all. We had to move before our deposit ran out. I folded a piece of paper in half, put it on the desk, and picked up a pencil. I had no idea what to write. Minutes passed. I was scribbling on the paper. The pencil lead snapped. I must survive. That's what I put down without realizing it before the fragments of black lead scattered all over. I crumpled up the piece of paper, put it in my pocket, and stood up. Dust rose when I pushed the desk before walking out of the room. I blew on the window and wrote 3 words. No farewell message would be enough to let the others know how I felt. At the same time, no farewell message was needed to make myself understood. See you again. It was a wish rather than a promise. Okay, so Jin is 20. It is June 25th, and we are on JK. I smoothed down the piano keys with my fingers, dust covering my fingertips. I pressed the keys more strongly, but I couldn't make them sound like Suga did. It had been 2 weeks since Suga stopped coming to school. Rumor had it that he was finally expelled. Hobie didn't say anything, and I didn't ask. On that day 2 weeks ago, Suga and I were the only ones in the room when the teacher came in. It was open house day. We went there without any plan. We just didn't want to stay in our classrooms. Suga didn't look back and went on playing the piano. I was lying on 2 desks put together with my eyes closed. Something about Suga and the piano didn't seem to match, but the two were actually inextricable. I was like, oh yeah, that's what that word is. Jesus Christ, I can't fucking see. I had no idea how much time had passed. Suddenly, the door burst open with a thundering sound as if someone had broken it down. The piano stopped. I kept backing away as the teacher slapped my face until I fell down. I sat hunched up, putting up with the ceaseless streams of abusive words. All of a sudden, the teacher stopped yelling. I looked up to see Suga stepping in between us and pushing the teacher's shoulder. I could also see the teacher's dumbfounded look over Suga's shoulder. I pressed the keys and tried to mimic the tune he had played that day. Will he really be expelled? Will he ever come back? He said he was used to being hit and kicked by teachers. If I weren't there, would he still have turned against the teacher? If I weren't there, would he still be playing the piano here? Oh, so he must have gotten expelled for defending JK against from the teacher. Because since that day, he hadn't been back to school. Mm-hmm. Okay. Anything else so far? We're good so far? Mm-hmm. Okay. So Jin is 20. It's still June 25th. So same day that JK went to the room and was just trying to play the piano like Suga. As soon as I stepped into the room, I took out an envelope from the bottom drawer of the desk. I took out the half-burned piano key from the envelope, threw it into the trash can, and laid down on the bed. I was still breathing hard and couldn't stop my mind from racing. I went back to the burned-down house once after the funeral. A skeleton of what used to be a piano was still standing where my mom's room used to be. I flopped down on the ground. The afternoon sunlight climbed over the window and then shrank away. I raised my head and saw several piano keys in the distance. What notes were they? How many times had her finger touched those keys? I stood up and put one of the keys in my pocket. 4 years had passed. The house was filled with silence that drove me crazy. It was past 10, so Dad must have gone to bed. Everything and everyone inside the house had to keep still after he went to bed. That was the rule. I wasn't familiar with such deep silence, or with being punctual and following the rules. It was even more unbearable that I was living in this house despite all that. I was receiving an allowance from him. I was eating dinner with him, and I was getting scolded by him. I sometimes challenged him and caused trouble, but I didn't have the courage to desert him, to run away, and to find true freedom. I picked the piano key out of the trash can under my desk. When I opened the window, the night air blew in. My mind replayed the events of the day in quick succession. I threw the piano key out of the window with all my might. It had been 2 weeks since I had gone to school. They said I was expelled. I might get kicked out of the house, even if I wanted to stay. I couldn't hear the piano key hit the ground. Now I'd never know what note it made. It'd never make a sound again. I'd never play the piano again. Okay. I feel like, hold on, I need to like readjust myself in the seat. Okay, my back was feeling weird. You have a frowny face. What's going on? You have a frowny face.
I'm just listening.
Good? Okay. So, Jin is 20. Date is July 17th. We are back to Jin. The shrill whine of cicadas, which are like those grasshoppers that make really, we could have them like in Florida.
They're annoying.
Yeah, they're so loud. And anyway, the shrill whine of cicadas hit my ears as soon as I stepped out of the school building. The playground was full of students laughing, playing, and racing around. It was beginning of summer vacation, and everyone was excited. I wove my way quickly through the crowd with my head down. All I wanted was to get out of there. Jin. Someone's shadow jumped into my path, and I hastily raised my head. It was J-Hope and Jimin. They were smiling their big, kind-hearted smiles, as always, and looked straight at me with mischievous eyes. "You're not going straight home on the first day of vacation, are you?" Hobie said, tugging at my arm. I muttered something that sounded like yes and turned my head away. What had happened that day was an accident. I didn't mean for it to happen. I didn't think that JK and Sugar would be there in the classroom turned storage room at that hour. The principal was suspecting that I was covering for the others. He threatened to tell Dad how bad I was doing at school. I had to say something. I told him about our hideout because I thought it would be empty, but it led to Sugar getting expelled. No one knew I was mixed up in it. "Have a good vacation. Let's keep in touch." Hobie must have read my face. He slowly let go of my hand and said goodbye even more brightly. I couldn't reply. There was nothing I could say. My first day at the school crossed my mind as I passed through the school gate. We were all late and got punished, but we were together, so we could laugh together. I had ruined all those memories we shared. After I decided to live like Dad wanted me to, after I made up my mind not to chase happiness, I had bitten off more than I could chew. Okay. Next part. Jin is 20. It's September 15th, and we are on Hobie. Jimin's mom walked across the emergency room towards the bed. She checked the name tag on the foot of the bed and the dangling IVs above it and removed a dried blade of grass from Jimin's shoulder. I hesitantly walked towards her and bowed. I felt I had to tell her why Jimin ended up in the emergency room and how he had a seizure at the bus stop. Jimin's mom seemed to realize I was there for the first time, but she immediately turned her eyes away after saying a quick thank you without waiting for me to explain. It wasn't until the doctors and nurses began to move his bed, and I was about to follow, that Jimin's mom glanced at me again. She thanked me once again and pushed my shoulder. On second thought, she didn't actually push me. She just placed her hand on my shoulder and quickly removed it. In that fleeting moment, a line was drawn between us. That line was firm and solid. It was cold and undeletable. I'd never be able to cross over that line. I lived at an orphanage for more than 10 years. Sorry, guys. I lived at an orphanage for more than 10 years. I could recognize lines like that with all my senses and see it in people's eyes, and I felt it in and feel it in the atmosphere. I stepped back disconcertedly and fell backwards. Jimin's mom just gazed at me blankly. She was small and beautiful, but her shadow was large and chilly. That large shadow cast over me as I sat crumpled on the emergency room floor. When I looked up, Jimin's bed was gone. So, hold on. So it looks like he, blacked out. Had, a moment. She, touched his shoulder, and he felt like she pushed him, but she didn't really push him. She just put her hand there and then, and took it back off. But in that moment, he felt, her coldness from it, and then all of a sudden, it says he fell backwards, and then all of a sudden he woke up, and Jimin's bed was already gone by that point. So it seems to me like he, blacked out, or, passed out again. Because you know how, like, a lot of scenes, like, you see him just kind of fall to the ground? I personally think that he has, like, I mean, obviously we know, like, in his Mama, oh my god, my nose is itching like crazy, Jesus. Obviously we know from his Mama short film that he doesn't really have anything, like, diagnosed wrong with him necessarily, as far as, like, medication that he's being prescribed and stuff to help with. I mean, obviously he has an issue. But as far as medication, he's being prescribed. She just made a weird sound on the table. If that sounded weird, sorry. She just made this really odd sound on the table. Jeez. I was like, hold on. That probably sounded really weird to them. Let me explain what just happened.
I just, like, scooted
her hand across the table. Like, but because her hands... See, this is what mine sounds like.
I don't even know how I did it.
This is what mine sounds like. Hers went because of your moist ass hands.
My hand wasn't. It was like this part of my hand,
well,
but I don't know how I did it.
Now okay. Now you're trying to recreate the sound.
It.
Anyway,
damn it!
No, I promise you, it was her hand. Anyway, so he's being prescribed a placebo, which means it's a pill that, like, has nothing in it. It's for people who have, like, something wrong, but there's not really anything that they can prescribe to make them better, because it's kind of like a mental thing. It's, like, all in his head. So they give him a placebo to make him think that he's taking medication to help him when there's not really anything to help him. Yeah. So it sounds to me like that he just had one of those moments again where he kind of, like, collapses to the ground, and then he just, like, by the time he woke up, like, you know, his bed was already moved to the next, like, place or whatever. Anyway, okay. So we are at, Jin is 20. It is September 30th, and we are on JK now. JK, you don't still go there, do you? I just looked down at the toes of my sneakers, and I refused to answer, so the teacher struck my head with the attendance book. I still didn't give in. It was where we hung out. Since I first stepped into that room, not a day had passed without me stopping by. The others wouldn't have known. They had other plans and part-time jobs and didn't always drop by. Suga and Jin sometimes didn't show up for days, but I was different. I went there without exception. There were days when no one else came, and that was fine with me. It was fine because that room was there, and because others would show up later or tomorrow or the next day. I knew you were hanging out with the wrong crowd. The attendance book hit my head again. When I raised my eyes and stared at the teacher, the attendance book came down again. The scene of Suga getting beat flooded my mind. I clenched my teeth and restrained myself. I didn't want to lie and say that I didn't go there. Then I was standing in front of the room. It felt as if the others were on the other side of the door. When it opens, they'll look back and complain about what took me so long. Jin and RM must be reading, V must be playing a game, Suga must be in front of the piano, and Hobie and Jimin must be dancing. But when I opened the door, only Hobie was there. He had come to clear out what was left of our things. I stood frozen with my hand on the doorknob. Hobie came towards me, put his arms over my shoulder, and walked me back outside. Let's go. The door to the room closed behind us. I realized then and there those days were gone and would never come again. So their little hideout is no longer. Mm-hmm. And it seems like they don't see each other as much as they used to now.
Mm-hmm. I have to pee.
She has to pee. Well, turn on the chat.
Oh,
We'll do a little pee break for everyone. A little pee break for everyone.
Yo,
go pee. What's up?
Let's pee.
I'm good. I don't have to pee. I peed before I started. Isn't it sad? I know. It sucks. And there's a certain part that we'll get to in this book. I'm not trying to make you guys cry. But there's a certain part that I'll get to in this book. And because I cried like when I read this the first time. But I actually started like crying at one point in this book. And so when we get there, I'll stop and I'll talk about it at that point. But yeah, I have it in my, I think is it my webtoon reaction from a year ago? I believe it is. Yeah, I believe it's my webtoon reaction from like a year ago. I think I had put in, because my file from the notes from when I reacted to the notes, my file got all jacked up, but there was bits and pieces of it that were still kind of good. And so I included, I believe it was before I got into the webtoon, I think. I have a playlist. It says XOL reacts to BTS storyline. That's the name of the playlist. But yeah, I remember being able to kind of salvage that clip. The audio wasn't great on it. Yeah, I put a clip of the part that really got to me in this book at the beginning of my webtoon reaction. And yeah, so hello. So when we get to that part in this book, I'll definitely kind of stop and talk about it. But yeah. You remember the moment I was talking about? Yeah. Yeah, it was so sad. And it's so true. But yeah, I'll talk more about it when I don't know if we'll get to that today or if it'll be the next week when we go live again to read this. And by the way, guys, for those of you who didn't hear me yesterday, next week, my normal Saturday live is going to be on Sunday. So the normal live with the unboxings and giveaways will be Sunday at 1. And then as soon as that's done, we'll end the live and start the BTS storyline. So that live, we'll try our hardest to actually only be 4 hours because we need to use the other time to do more notes. So yeah. Okay. Okay, so we are on the next chapter. It's called I Must Survive. Do you want to turn off the chat again? We're turning off the chat again so we cannot see you. Bye-bye. Okay. So I have no idea what you guys are saying right now.
It's hair on my nose.
Okay. You good?
Yeah, I was getting some hair on my nose.
Oh, okay. Okay. So we are now... Ooh, this is a long one. Ooh, this is a long one. Holy crapola. We are on like an 8-page chapter. Jin is 21. It is December 17th, and we are on RM. And he's about to tell us his perspective for like 8 pages. So, okay. I continue to slow my pace. Oh, and this is called I Must Survive. I don't know if I said that. Good. Okay. I continued to slow my pace and finally came to a stop. It was dawn in a country village where even the buses didn't run frequently. The entire village was blanketed under luminous snow that had fallen all night. The trees were hunched up like massive white beasts and shed hair like snow every time the wind blew. I knew without looking back that I was the only one leaving footprints across the snowfield in the village. Both of my feet had long been soaking wet because of the cracked soles of my sneakers. I once heard a saying that God makes us lonely. You good? Okay. Okay. I once heard a saying that God makes us lonely to lead us back to ourselves. But I was not lonely. I was not following the path towards myself. This was a retreat. I was running away from myself. My family arrived in this village last fall. The amount of belongings we brought continued to get smaller each time we moved to a new town. Now we only needed a small delivery van to move. We were in no position to be picky about where we lived. There were only 2 conditions. One was a hospital for Dad, and the other was an employer who was willing to hire someone without a high school diploma. This village had both. The bus that ran twice a day stopped in front of the county-run hospital, and a series of small eateries lined the stream behind the town. Jesus Christ. Could not read. And a series of small eateries lined the stream behind the town. These eateries sold stew and fries made with fish caught from the stream. In the summer months were their high season. Crowds seeking a waterside excursion poured in from nearby cities, and the demand for deliveries to those staying at the village. They might be able to hear that. I don't know if it's making noise or not. Just be conscious of it.
I'm
Okay.
just playing with the bag.
Okay. I'm just like, imagine her. She starts popping the things right in front of the mic. There's. Don't do that. That's gonna be loud in your ears.
Oh, it didn't even pop. That's sad.
She was about to pop freaking bubble wrap right next to the microphone. That would have been so loud in y'all's ears. You're a little stinker.
Just for you.
I'm moving it away from her. Don't you worry.
I'm just playing with the bag.
If you hear weird sounds, it's definitely her. Just FYI.
Go ahead, continue.
She's like a little kid sometimes. It's ridiculous. Okay. Crowds seeking a waterside excursion poured in from nearby cities, and the demand for deliveries to those staying at the village with the rest area on the mountainous ridge was high. During winter, when the stream froze solid, the eateries used preserved fish caught in the summer. There were not as many tourists as in the summer, but calls for delivery remained steady. I was one of the town's delivery boys. Of course, there was competition here too. Most of the households subsisted on farming, and as can be guessed, we're not that wealthy. Delivery service was the only part-time job available for the boys in town. Eatery owners made us compete against each other. Isn't it natural that I hire whoever impresses me most? From them, it didn't matter that we were minors and didn't have driver's licenses. The boys who'd already been hired acted very territorial. There were only a few, but they threatened me with harsh hazing. During vacation, the competition became fiercer. We voluntarily and competitively ran errands and took out the trash for the owners. Their connivance? Connivance? What is that? I don't even know that word. Their connivance only drove us further. Connivance? What the fuck word is that? What does connivance mean? I'm like, what? They're like, them like making us compete? Or willingness to secretly allow or be involved in wrongdoing, especially immoral or illegal acts. Okay. So they're, what? Connivance. Oh, connivance. That makes more sense. Like conniving. Okay, I get that now. I didn't know that you could turn conniving into like connivance. I didn't know that was a thing.
Me neither.
Wow, I'm an old bitch. The more you know. I hope you guys learned something today because I sure did. Okay. So their connivance only drove us further, and yet, almost unexpectedly, we came to develop a sort of solidarity amongst us. We were rivals, but we had sort of sympathy for one another. If one of us didn't show up, the rest wondered what had happened. They also reminded me of the time I spent in that classroom turned storage room at high school. Some of them were similar to Suga, and some to Jimin. I couldn't help but wonder if my friends from school had met here in this village. Would we have competed against and tried to outrival each other? If I had met these delivery boys at school, would we have become friends? Snow fell heavily when our competition, territorial instincts, and strange sense of solidarity all reached their peaks. Then the competition subsided instantly. A motor scooter was a must to make deliveries to the village with the rest area. But it was very dangerous to ride a lightweight motorbike along the snow-covered mountainous trail. The trail that led to the village with the rest area was steep and winding. Delivery on foot was not an option. In the end, it was a showdown between V and me. V was 2 years younger and lived on the outskirts of the village near the orchard. V wasn't his real name. It was either Jong-sik or Jong-kun, but he reminded me of V. He didn't have that silly smile or easily open up to anyone with his gentle, naive nature. Rather, he always seemed aggressive and angry and discontent. On the outside, he appeared similar to Suga, but oddly enough, he reminded me more of V. So this is like, I guess, V2 of someone who just reminds him of V, so he calls him V. So V and I were the only ones V2, I should say. V2 and I were the only ones wretchedly poor enough to take the risk and keep making deliveries up to that snow-covered mountain town. It was that same day when yet another order was phoned into the eatery. I was roaming around along the stream. No one else had showed up as the weather reported forecast heavy snow in the afternoon. V2 appeared a few minutes later. Instead of going into the eatery and chatting as usual, he just flopped down on the ground near the bridge and didn't move. It was one of those days. Those days when his face was cut and bruised. Those days when his eyes were bloodshot and his clothes were stained with blood. Was something wrong with him? Was someone hitting him? I didn't ask. Oh, wait, so this is V. This is actual V. Right? Because it's saying that his face was cut and bruised. I thought this guy just reminded him of V. You know? I don't know. Okay, let's just keep reading. It began to snow while I was waiting for the food to be prepared. At the same moment, I felt something cold brush against my cheek. The snow began falling thicker and heavier. Are you sure you'll be okay? The owner stuck his head out. V sprang to his feet, and I turned my face towards him. Of course, we both answered simultaneously. You never know how much more snow will fall from that kind of sky, said someone inside the eatery. It just began to fall. I'll be back in a minute. The owner looked into my face with a doubtful stare. But you're still not so good at driving the scooter. V came over, saying he had ridden the scooter many times. The owner clicked his tongue when he saw his face. No, not you today. You go rest. I didn't miss the opportunity and jumped in. There's a first time for everything. Today's the first day I make delivery in the snow. You know I'm very cautious. The owner gave in. Come in here. You'll have to make quite a few round trips, so be careful. I could feel V's gaze following me behind my back as I stepped into the eatery. He hovered around me while I packed the prepared food and put it into the container. It was odd. V was usually too proud to act like this. When I looked back at him, he took a step towards me as if he had something to say. Then he turned away again. The owner kept nagging me about driving on a snow-covered road. I pretended to listen, enthusiastically nodding my head. Driving a scooter wasn't something that required so much attention, skill, and stress. Contrary to what I had thought, it wasn't easy climbing the slope through the snow flurries on a scooter. The snow hadn't begun sticking on the ground, but my nerves were on edge because it was flying in every direction in heavy flakes. The decrepit scooter struggled up the slope. It was as if the scooter was clinging onto me. It was cold, but I was dripping with sweat and all my muscles tightened. The next minute, my sweat dried and I felt a chill on my back. I kept repeating a thought to myself. If I had gone up and down this road without any problems and If I had gone up and down this road without any problems all fall and up until early winter, besides the snow is not sticking and the road is not slippery. The scooter slipped helplessly on my way down during the third trip. I had just started to gain confidence and think that I was pretty good at maneuvering the scooter on a snowy day. As the snow began falling for a while and the road had little traffic, it began to pile up here and there. But it was still okay in the center of the road, and the slope was not that steep. Then, as soon as that thought crossed my mind, the rear wheel slid out. Startled, I clamped down on the brakes tightly. Was I holding onto them too tightly? This thought filled my head. I think I remember the owner saying something about the brakes. The owner's warnings that I had listened to half-heartedly raced across my mind. The scooter seemed to regain control for a moment, but the wheel started to fishtail before I could even let out a sigh of relief. In the next breath, I was hurled onto the road. I tumbled down as if the scooter had bounced me off as hard as it could. The scooter slid down the road by itself. It must have bumped into something. I heard a loud thud. I sprang to my feet. I couldn't afford to check if I was injured or where it hurt. I ran to the scooter, which was on its side under a tree off the right side of the road. It was covered with fallen leaves. I picked it up to discover a deep, unmissable scratch at the bottom of its body. I put the key in and turned it. It didn't start. Sweat rolled down the back of my neck. Every joint in my body ached. I was seized with fear. There was no way I could pay for the scooter. I turned the key again, this time kicking the engine. The engine seemed to rattle and turn over, but it died just as quickly. I cursed under my breath, shut my eyes, and kicked the ground as hard as I could. My hand, which held the key, couldn't stop trembling. The faces of my parents and brothers slid by. I looked up into the sky and collected my wits. I clenched and unclenched my fists, and then I turned the key again. The engine finally started up after several attempts. The scooter came alive, sounding like the shrill of a dying animal. I collapsed to the ground. I was drained. The deep scratch was at eye level. I jumped up and rubbed it hard with the toe of my sneaker. It was an old scooter covered in numerous dents and scratches already. It might go unnoticed. When I stood upright, one of my ankles tingled with pain. Only then did I start to check my own condition. Fortunately, there were no serious wounds. There was a small cut above my left ankle bone that was bleeding. My thighs and mid-waist might ache in the morning, but I'd been there before. Taehyung watched me park the scooter, or V, watched me park the scooter and step inside the eatery. Did he notice? I grew nervous, but chatted with the owner as casually as possible. The next delivery order came in soon, and I had to go out again before I had even warmed up. Hey, V spoke to me as I approached the scooter. Did he see the scratch? I replied in a deliberately loud voice, What? After some hesitation, V went on, I have a favor to ask. Favor? What favor? That was when my phone rang. I held up one hand to shush him and turn around. It was Mom. Dad had tried to go outside alone and fell. She asked me to take him to the hospital. I shut my eyes. Anger rose from deep within. I clenched my teeth. I could feel my annoyance slowly surging from my stomach. Snowflakes, now noticeably larger, fell on my face. I was going up and down that slippery road in this weather to earn almost nothing. The cut on my left ankle hurt and my thighs were burning, but I was setting out to ride the scooter again. It was on the way to earn that little bit of money. It was the only way to earn that little bit of money today. I could understand why he tried to walk alone. It was his last pride as the head of our family and his attempt to keep his dignity as a parent, but we couldn't afford such luxuries in the face of poverty. Dignity, pride, and a sense of justice and morals just led to a greater burden and more money to spend. When I opened my eyes, V was staring at me. I handed him the key. When Dad and I got off the bus from the hospital, the sun had already set. The large snowflakes from earlier had continued to grow and created snowdrifts. The bus crawled along. It took twice as long as usual to get to the hospital and back home. I walked home carrying Dad on my back with no one in sight to hold an umbrella for us. My hair was damp and my hands holding him were numb with cold. I took a break under the Zelkova tree past the road on the embankment. I caught my breath and looked up. A panoramic view of the village had met my eyes. The village, blanketed under snow, appeared tranquil and peaceful. Warm yellow light streamed through the windows of different houses here and there. The smell of steamed rice and stew sharpened my appetite. Or I need some water. My throat's starting to get dry. Okay. When we entered the alley after crossing the bridge, dogs started barking. Although we had lived in this village for several months now, the dog still barked at me like a stranger. Mom sprang up when we came in. He needs to receive outpatient treatment for at least 3 more days. I laid Dad in his room and went outside. Still no sign of the snow letting up. Why do you hate me so much? Let me at least know the reason. I yelled at the dogs, barking their heads off. I heard about V's accident the next day. When I dropped by the eatery along the stream, I saw the owner talking with a police officer. I instinctively froze. I thought he had come for me. I had damaged a scooter on the previous day. I could get in trouble for driving underage without a driver's license. Should I run back home? But the bus wouldn't come for hours. It just wasn't possible to run away with Dad in this condition. Did you hear? It was the owner of another eatery next door. She said the accident happened when V was driving down the hill after the delivery. His body was just lying there for more than 3 hours until someone in a passing car found him. A resident in the town with the rest area called the eatery owner, but no one set out to find him. The police officer said V was an unskilled driver. He also blamed him for not wearing a helmet. I saw a helmet, which I'd never seen before, placed on the counter of the eatery. The owner kept saying that he never forced V to go out delivering and even tried to talk him out of it. It was true. V and I had insisted that we were okay with it. The neighbors all chipped in. It was a small village where everyone knew everyone else. They had at least a memory or two about everybody there. Whether it was about a fist fight, backbiting, or betrayal. The series of episodes about him came flowing out. He lived with his mom and sister and no dad. Okay, so this is definitely just someone he calls V because it's like V, but this is not actually V. V's mom writhed in agony on a bench in front of the eatery and wailed, "Bring my son back, bring my poor son back. It's a wrongful death." At first the neighbors tried to soothe her and wept with her, but it was cold and the sun set early in the evening. In the evening, V's mom was left alone, and the smell of dinner cooking flowed out through the window as always. Every time the wind blew on the streets, lining the stream, snow fell in lumps. She just sat there in the middle of it. I saw her sitting alone while I was taking Dad home from the hospital. Without realizing it, I stopped walking and remembered the spot of the accident. After hearing about V, I walked along the trail by myself. My breath froze and fell to the ground as ice crystals. V's shape, drawn in a white outline on the road, was half erased. I stopped at his feet. Damp leaves were rolling around, and the grayish traces of calcium chloride were still left behind. That could have been me lying there. If I had made that delivery, if it had been me instead of V, then this would be my outline. It could have been my family wailing on the bench instead of V's. I bent my steps after Dad coughed violently. "RM," Dad called to me when we were about to enter the alley after crossing the bridge. As soon as I slowed my pace, the dog started to bark. Dad continued in a feeble, frail voice. It was hardly audible, lost among the fierce barking. I pretended that I had not heard him. 1 more week passed. The village quickly returned to normal. V's mom sometimes cried bitterly in front of the eatery, but no one shared in her sorrow. People just snubbed V's sister until she took her away. Someone said it was just a traffic accident. I began to work at another eatery. In fact, I was charged with all deliveries to the village with the rest of the within the rest area. With the rest area, yeah. One more heavy snowfall followed, and the trail continued to freeze and thaw. Delivery orders were only trickling in now, but no one applied to do the delivery job. I made 5 or 6 deliveries a day, and my income increased that much. I always made sure to wear the helmet and protective gear, and I never took my eyes off the road with every nerve at attention. Last night I made my last delivery. I didn't know it would be my last time, but it was. The rest area closed down for the winter months anyways. When I went up there, people were gathered in the office. They seemed to be discussing the sales of the facility. I didn't recognize some of the faces. They must be strangers who had just moved in. While I put down the food and took the money, one of them began to talk about V's accident. Another stranger clicked his tongue and mentioned how dangerous it was to ride a motorbike on a snowy day. The stranger who first mentioned V's accident warned me to always take extra care. I thanked him for worrying about me, but I didn't mean it. If he was so concerned about the snow-covered slope and my safety, he shouldn't have ordered the food in the first place. Do you know what's really dangerous? The stranger blurted out right before I closed the door behind me. Calcium chloride in wet leaves, not the snow itself. Unless you're a very good driver, you'll skid if you step on them. Didn't it snow that day? Then he must have. His last words went unheard as the door closed. I cut across the empty, dismal rest area. I passed the narrow snack bar and local specialty discount counter and headed for the exit. I walked down the stairs one at a time. It was below zero, but it didn't feel that cold. They kept slipping from my fingers, and I kept turning it to no avail. I clenched and unclenched my fist. The old scooter rattled like crazy and finally started. I pulled out of the rest area slowly. A curve began at the rest area signpost. I made a right turn in a wide circle, ran down a short straight section, and came to another curve that wound to the left. This was the spot where I slipped first, and then Taehyung ran into trouble. I kept my eyes forward and rapidly passed the spot. I tried to convince myself that I wasn't taking my eyes off the road to stay safe, but it was guilt. Guilt for surviving alone. Guilt for feeling relieved that I was the one who's still alive. Guilt for not being able to come forward. Guilt for not speaking up to defend his driving skills and for not confessing that I'd never seen a helmet at the eatery. Maybe I was just a hypocrite pretending to have a guilty conscience. I had scattered the wet leaves on the spot where Taehyung went down. I didn't mean for it to happen, but I was responsible for all of it. I was the one who'd sprinkled the calcium chloride with good intentions to prevent the road from icing over. In fact, I did it for myself because I truly believe that I'd make the next delivery and the one after that. Do you know what's really dangerous? What I'd heard at the rest area replayed in my mind. He must have ridden over it and slipped. If I had removed the leaves, if I hadn't sprinkled calcium chloride, would he have been safe? Several people were already at the bus stop waiting for the first bus of the day. I nodded my head in greeting and then kept it bent. I tried not to make eye contact with anyone. The first bus of the day came into sight. The bus gradually came to a stop. With my head bent low, I boarded it after the other passengers. I didn't have a specific plan. I was just sneaking away. From my mom's exhausted face, from my brother going astray, from dad struggling against his illness, from our family's fortune going downhill, from my family requiring sacrifice and obedience from me trying to resign to my fate, and most of all, from poverty. Poverty eats into the heart of life. It turns what's precious into something meaningless. It makes you give up what shouldn't be given up. It makes you doubt, fear, and despair. Last night, I left the rest area, dropped by the eatery, and then went home. I don't remember who I met, what I talked and thought about in between. My entire body and mind felt numb. I couldn't tell whether it was windy, whether it was cold, how it smelled, or who I ran into. My brain seemed to have frozen. I was moving mechanically like a zombie, oblivious of who I am, what I've done, what I'm doing, and what I'm thinking. It was the barking dogs that shook me out of it at the mouth of the alley leading home. In that moment, all my senses, which had been paralyzed, awoke at once, and countless scenes from my past spread out before my eyes. The days of hopping from one place to another, the moment I slipped on the road, me crawling to the eatery owner and competing with the other boys to land the delivery jobs, the boys who laughed at me, and me looking at my peers in their school uniforms waiting for the bus. The sound of the barking dogs and the sight of their threatening eyes filled with hatred were added to these scenes. I almost screamed, "Stop it, what do you want me to do?" But I held myself back. Dad's voice rang in my ears. Dad's feeble, frail voice. I thought of what he had told me that night when we came home from the hospital, what I pretended not to hear, but heard clear as day through the barking of dogs. What I had dwelled on over and over since that day, what I had tried not to think about. Go, RM. You must survive. The bus departed, set to arrive in Songju a few hours later. I didn't leave a message when I left Songju 1 year ago. Now I'm returning to the city without any notice. I thought of my friends. I haven't kept in touch with any of them. I wondered what they were doing and if they were still there. I couldn't see outside through the window covered with frost. I slowly wrote on the window with my forefinger, I must survive. So his dad told him to go and live his life. And it took him a while.
It took all of this happening.
Well, yeah, it took everything, and it took him a while for him to actually do that. Okay, I need to give my eyes just a second. You want to turn on the chat again? I need to give my eyes a second rest. I start just going like cross-eyed, I swear, after a while. Hi, guys. How are you? Hi. They're talking about fanfics, apparently.
I see that.
So that was a lot of RM, like an explanation of where RM went after, because obviously he's one of the older, kids. So, but I mean, they moved because they needed to like move again because the family was poor and they couldn't pay their rent. So that's why he moved. But it didn't seem like he moved and went back to school. He moved and then started working to help pay for his dad's care. Elizabeth, yeah, I know it happens. Yeah, RM's story is sad. So we're on page 71, which is, these are shorter chapters coming up. So, let me put on some more chapstick and let's get going on to the next chapter. Yeah. RM's story's sad, but it's probably the happiest one. If that tells you anything. Yeah. Caitlin's like, Yeah. Yeah, the whole fake the V thing was really sad. Yeah. And I was like, should I call this person V too? Like, how should I? Because it kept saying Taehyung in the story. And I'm like, people are like, who aren't actually reading it, like, I hope no one gets confused thinking this is actually V. But yeah. Okay. Well, it keeps hopping back and forth from multiple members. We're on page 71 in the book right now. You can always go back and start watching this from the beginning, just so that you're not, like, missing out on anything in the story. Sorry, yo. Oh, happy birthday. Okay, so we are on page 71. We are going to continue. At least I try to cover up my yawn. You just yawn it all out in the open. I'm supposed to smack her with the book if she starts getting tired. Do I need to smack you with the book? Do I just need to put on real quick? Do I need to play real quick? Can I Do we need a little time? We ready? Okay, I can't, like, just let it go because this shit will get, like, blocked or copyrighted. Who the hell knows?
I'm good now.
Are you good now?
Yep.
Just a little bit of that's all she needed.
Just need a little.
Just a little pick me up, a little wake up. If I need to play the next 20 seconds, just let me know. I can do that. Kaylin, what do you feel so far? Talk to us about your feelings so far. We're like a quarter of the way in.
I'm just trying to process everything. Try not to cry as I listen to you read. Try not to fall asleep as I listen to you read. This is why I don't do audiobooks.
I like audiobooks.
I do not. I like podcasts, but I don't like audiobooks.
It's almost the same thing.
I know, it's
one's
weird.
telling a story, one's just talking about random shit. I mean,
know, it's weird.
Yeah.
I just feel like I'm tired. But it's so sad.
Yeah. I still feel tired. Stop it, Jesus! Here.
I'm emotional.
Finish the rest of the Red Bull. It's not that cold anymore, but finish the rest of the damn Red Bull.
Oh my
I swear.
God, it's hot.
It's not hot. Calm down. I got it from the fridge. It's just not very cold anymore. Sorry. Well, don't hold it with your warm ass hands. It's gonna be even hotter. She's holding it like it's a damn hot cocoa.
I listened to Eric's too. You're right.
It needs to be colder though. I don't know if you want to put it in the fridge or not, but it's still the better tasting. But it's like it's super like fizzy in the mouth because it's warm. Yeah. I almost want to like shake it to get the fizz out and then just drink it because the flavor's fine. Oh, can't I? Oh, do I need it?
No.
Do I need it? Yeah. Okay, that's enough. You're awake. We're going on. We're moving on. We're turning the chat off.
Bye.
We'll be back. We're turning the chat off. We can't see anything you're saying right now.
Bye.
Talk amongst yourselves. What to look for when lost is the next section of the book. Stop yawning, damn it. Jesus.
I want a cookie.
Fuck my life. You want a cookie? That you want a cookie? Yeah. Oh, we saw those random ass Chips Ahoy with Sour Patch Kids.
Ew.
Ugh. Fucking Brian bought Chips Ahoy with Sour Patch Kids in them. First of all, why did they make these in the first place? That's the biggest
not a
question.
Cookie I want.
It's gross AF. No, but we do have Pepperidge Farm cookies out there. They're really good.
What kind?
Chocolate chip and double chocolate chip. But if there's only one double chocolate chip left, you have to give that to me. Sorry. You want to go get those? Okay, yeah, she's going to go get... Let me turn the chat back on then if that's the case. I might as well chat with you guys while she's getting... Just bring them both in here. They're on the counter. Hi. Hello. What was the song I need to turn on? That's UGH from BTS. Yes, that's... Yeah, that's Oh, Jesus, she just... Are you okay? That's 4 in a row. Girl, calm down. Jesus. She's like a hiccuping fool over here. All right, so... we have Pepperidge Farm Captiva. And we have Pepperidge Farm Montauk. What the fuck that is. Yeah. So... Actually, I'm not going to eat mine right now because I'm good right now. But you can... Bitch, you want a cookie? You want me to see if there's... There's 2 left. So you're allowed to have 1. And I'll have the other one later. Those are really good. I'm not even going to lie. They're soft, too. They're really good, aren't they? Yeah. Soft baked. I'm assuming those are soft baked too, right? Yeah, soft baked. Yes. Cookie time. Hopefully that wasn't loud in front of this mic. I forget that this mic is pretty...
To make continue.
Picks up everything. Okay. So, let's continue. Yes? Okay. Okay. So... Jin is now 22, and it is March 2nd, and we are on Hobie. J-Hope, okay? I liked mingling with people. As soon as I left the orphanage, I started working at a two-star burger. No, I started working at Two-Star Burger as a part-timer. I had to deal with countless people, smiling constantly and always looking energetic. I loved that job. There had been a few things that made me smile or feel energetic in my life. I came across many more bad people than good people. That must have been why I enjoyed that job so much. While I was squeezing out a laugh, deliberately speaking in a higher tone, and pretending to be cheerful in front of the customers, I actually did change. I felt better after laughing out loud and became more kind-hearted through working hard to serve customers in a friendly way. Of course, there were tough days. It took all my energy to take each step on my way home at the end of the day. Sometimes I suffered from bullying customers, but I just smiled and laughed, and laughing gave me new energy. I graduated from high school in February. A high school diploma didn't bring much change. It only let me work more hours at the burger joint. I made a little bit more money, but it still wasn't enough to move to a better room. With the start of a new semester, Two-Star Burger was crowded with freshmen looking dazed and upperclassmen trying to look mature. They were all cute. We used to be just like them once. What are the others up to? I thought of them from time to time. The last time I saw Jin was at the beginning of the summer vacation. He seemed to be avoiding me, so I kept my distance. I heard later that he transferred to another school. Suga, as usual, didn't respond to our calls, and no one knew what happened with RM. V, who was particularly fond of RM, began to ditch school at some point and was said to be in and out of the police station and drawing graffiti on the street. JK occasionally appeared in front of the glass door of the burger joint. It seemed like he was always getting into fights, as he usually had cuts and bruises on his face. As for Jimin, the last time I saw him was when he was wheeled out of the emergency room. The memories of that day frequently crossed my mind and haunted me. Did I do something wrong? Did I miss something? Another customer stepped into the store. I inhaled deeply and greeted him in a high tone. I smiled big and looked towards the door. It was someone I knew. So Jin is still 22. It is March 29th, and we are on V. After the owner of the gas station spit on the ground and left, I just continued to lie there, bunched up on the ground. He had caught me drawing graffiti on the back wall, and he had beat me mercilessly. I thought I was getting used to getting hit, but it turned out I wasn't. I started spray painting graffiti some time ago. I thoughtlessly spray painted on a wall from a can someone had thrown away. The yellow paint sprayed onto a gray wall stood out distinctly. The sight felt oddly uneasy. I picked up another paint can and sprayed it over the yellow paint. I didn't like it either. Soon, I had used up all the cans. After the last one ran out, I threw it on the ground and stepped back. I was out of breath, as if I had just sprinted at full speed. I didn't know what the colors on the wall signified. I also didn't know what I had drawn and why I had drawn it, but I could tell that it showed the state of my mind. I had sprayed my mind onto the wall. At first, I thought it was ugly and dirty and stupid, useless, and pitiful. I didn't like it. I rubbed at the wet paint with the palm of my hands. I wanted to erase it all. The layers of paint smudged and blended together to create more combinations of colors, but I couldn't erase them. I sat down and leaned against the wall. It didn't matter whether I liked it or not. It didn't matter whether it was ugly or beautiful. It was just there as a part of me. As I sat upright and began to cough, blood splattered onto the palm of my hand. Someone had picked up a spray can. I raised my head, following the hand, and a familiar face came into sight. It was RM. He held out his hand, and I just kept looking up at him. RM pulled me up. His hand was warm. Jin is still 22. It is April 7th, and we are on to Suga. Let me take another sip of drink.
Oh, I forgot to hide the chat. Now you may talk amongst yourselves.
They've probably been doing that this whole time.
Yeah, they probably have.
Okay, Suga. I stopped at the sound of a clumsy piano performance. In the dead of night, a fire in the metal drum made crackling sounds in the middle of an empty construction site. I recognized the tune as one I had been playing not long ago, but made little of it. I walked along carelessly with my eyes closed. I was drunk, staggering and stumbling. With the heat from the fire, the sound of the piano, the night air, and the effect of alcohol all melted away. I came to at the sound of a loud honking. The car had just barely missed me. The dazzling lights of the headlamps, the wind stirred up by the car, and the remaining buzz of the alcohol made me feel giddy. I heard the driver curse. I was about to hurl some back when I realized I couldn't hear the piano anymore. No piano, only the crackling of the blazing fire, the whirling wind, and the sound of cars zipping by. Why had it stopped? Who was playing? A flame jumped out of the drum with a crack and flew up into the dark sky. I looked blankly at the flame, turning to pitch black ash and falling to the ground. My face flushed from the heat of the fire. At that moment, I heard a loud bang as if someone had slammed down on the piano keys with his fists. I looked back instinctively. My blood surged through my body. The nightmare I had in my childhood, it was the same sound I heard in that nightmare. I started running towards the music shop. I wasn't in control, my body just moved on its own. I felt as if I had done this countless times. I wasn't sure what it was, but it seemed like I had forgotten something priceless. Someone was sitting in front of a piano in the music shop with a broken window. It had been several years, but I recognized his face immediately. I turned my eyes away. I didn't want to get involved in someone else's life. I didn't want to try to console someone who was lonely. I didn't want to be important for someone. I wasn't sure I could protect that someone till the end. I wasn't confident I could stand by that someone till the end. And I didn't want to hurt that someone. I didn't want to get hurt. It's hard enough for us to try to save ourselves when the last moment comes, let alone someone else. I bent my steps. I was going to turn away and leave without looking back, but I was approaching the piano before I knew it. I pointed out the wrong note. JK looked up at me. It was the first time we'd seen each other since I dropped out of school. They're all connecting again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sorry, my freaking foot. Okay. Year 22. So Jin is 22. It is April 11th. And we are on Jin. So Jin. With a sharp screech, the car barely stopped in front of me. I didn't see the traffic light change. Distracted by other thoughts, students clad in familiar school uniforms stared at me through the car window as they crossed the road. Some looked at me angrily. Some laughed briskly, as if making jokes with their friends. Some walked with their eyes fixed on their books, and some took a look around while talking on the phone. They all formed a peaceful scene. When the walk signal began to flash, impatient cars budged and stirred. Those who jumped into the crosswalk at the last minute hurried across. I stepped on the accelerator. I arrived at the interstation with the gas station in no time. I saw RM filling up a car in the distance. I clenched the steering wheel. I knew what to do, but it didn't mean that I wasn't frightened. Would I be able to put an end to this string of bad luck and pain? Doesn't repeated failure mean there's no possibility of success? Doesn't it mean we should give up? Is happiness really a vain hope for us? My head was throbbing with these thoughts. I inhaled deeply and slowly. I thought of the faces of Suga, Hobie, Jimin, V, and JK one after another. I changed lanes and pulled into the gas station. RM was approaching. I lowered the car window. Long time no see. So we saw that scene.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We also saw the scene with when this was about Suga, about he heard a car horn and it barely passed him. That was all in his First Love short film. Okay, so, and I'm trying to think of when the Long Time No See, that was at the end of, I think, Prologue or Run?
I remember seeing it. I just can't remember.
It was at the end of Prologue or Run, I believe. It wasn't Young Forever, and it wasn't in any of their short films. So I believe it was before that, because after the short films, we start getting into, like, Blood, Sweat, and Tears, and all of that stuff. So, yeah, it was definitely beforehand. So it was either the Prologue or it was Run. Okay, so now we are on same day. So now we just saw Jin pull up to the gas station, and now we're on RM at the gas station. As I finished filling up a car and turned around, something brushed against my cheek and fell to the ground. I took a step back and looked down to find a crumpled, banknote, which, dollars, a $20 bill or whatever, at my feet. I bent down and reached for it. The people in the car snickered. I was petrified. Jin was watching me in the distance. I couldn't look up. What would I do when I met the eyes of those who drive around in fancy cars and What would I do when I met the eyes of those who drive around in fancy cars and arrogantly sneer at others? I should stand against them. I should stand up for myself if they treat me unfairly. It wasn't a matter of courage, pride, or equality. It was just a matter of course. But this was a gas station, and I was a part-timer. I had to pick up the trash thrown out of the car windows. I had to just stand there and take it when customers cursed. I had to pick up the banknotes when customers threw them on the ground. I lived that way all my life. It was mortifying, but I had to endure it. I clenched my fists, my nails sank into my flesh. I kept my eyes fixed on the ground when someone else picked up the banknote. The people in the car grumbled at their spoiled fun and pulled away. They were gone, but I didn't raise my head. I just couldn't meet Jin's eyes. He already knew how cowardly and poor I was, but I didn't want him to know the naked truth about me. He just stood there on the edge of my sight. He didn't come closer or start talking. He was just there for them, there for him without needing to say anything. Okay, so all of this is the same day. So this is JK. Same day. Finally, I got my wish. I deliberately bumped into thugs on the street and they beat me thoroughly. I laughed while they did it, so they clobbered me even more, calling me crazy. I leaned against a store shutter and looked up into the sky. It was night. Nothing twinkled in the pitch-black sky. A clump of grass came into sight and off in the distance by a paved road. When the wind blew, the grass lay down on its back. It looked like me. I laughed out loud and kept my tears down. I closed my eyes and saw a vivid image of my stepfather clearing his throat. My stepbrother giggled. And my stepfather's relatives turned their eyes away or continued their idle talk. They acted as if I wasn't there, as if my existence meant nothing. Mom was flustered. I stirred up dust as I picked myself up off the ground and coughed. The pit of my stomach hurt like it had been stabbed with a knife. It was a deserted, unfinished building where construction had been halted. I tightrope walked along the guardrail installed in the rooftop with my arms spread out. I stretched my foot out into the void, and the darkness began to permeate through my toes. The colorful nightscape of the city unfolded down below me. Neon signs, honking cars, and the acrid smell of dust were all jumbled together in the darkness in a swirling torrent. I felt dizzy and staggered. As I spread my arms out even wider to keep my balance, a thought came to me. Just one more step forward. That's all it would take to end this. I leaned over the dark void. The darkness that seeped into my toes sprang up at me as if it gobbled up my entire body. I closed my eyes, and the disorderly city, the noise, and the fear all disappeared. I held my breath and slowly leaned over again. I cleared my head. I didn't think of anyone. I didn't want to leave anything in my head. I didn't want to remember anything. This was the end. My phone rang, and I came back to myself as if awakened from a long dream. All my senses instantly returned to normal. I took out my phone. It was Suga. So, he was about to... And then his phone rang and it was Suga. So now we're on to Suga, same day. I walked on, paying attention to JK's footstep following behind me. A string of containers appeared along the long stretch of railroad. It's the fourth one from the end. Hobie said he was meeting with Namjoon, or with RM and V, and told me to come. I said I would, but I didn't really mean it. I hated getting tangled up with others, and Hobie knew it. He couldn't have thought that I'd actually show up. When I opened the door, Hobie looked surprised. Then after seeing JK, he came towards us, making that exaggerated gesture of making that exaggerated gesture of his with a face. Oh, making that exaggerated gesture of his with a face full of mixed feelings. Jesus Christ, I'm like, fucking finish reading the goddamn sentence. JK turned away, probably to hide his busted lips. I passed JK and Hobie and walked into the container. How long has it been? Hobie, who is trying to hug JK, and JK, who is trying to sidestep his hug, continued to spar with each other. After a little while, RM came in with V. V's t-shirt was ripped. We asked what happened, and RM pretended to knuckle V on the head. This guy got arrested again for his graffiti, so I had to get him out. V went on about how his t-shirt got ripped and as he was trying to run away from the police. I flopped down in one corner and looked at them. RM gave V a t-shirt to put on, and Hobie took out some hamburgers and drinks. JK was standing there awkwardly, looking around. Come to think of it, we were just like this back in high school. In that classroom turned storage room, RM always got laughed at while trying to reason with V. Hobie was always bustling around, and JK always paced around like he never knew where to stand. How long it had been? I couldn't recall the last time we'd all been together. What happened to Jin and Jimin? I wondered. Although it wasn't in my character, I'd never been here before, but it felt strangely comfortable. I looked out of the door. Suddenly I felt an urge to run out of this place. A mysterious anxiety flooded in after that inexplicable peacefulness. My thoughts settled on that room we used to hide out in school together. We used to laugh and chat together, but those days were long gone. Likewise, the time we spent here will come to an end. Is there any point to this feeling good, sudden sense of belonging and groundless anticipation? So that reminds me for sure of the Run music video when, like, they all go into the storage and they're having, like, the party and they're having, like, a get-together. It also reminds me of, what else was I just about to say? Jesus Christ. I don't remember what I was just about to say. Never mind. Okay. So now we're on same day. So this is all still, I guess, at this, like, party type thing, this gathering. This is Jin. The light streaming in from the narrow window of the container looked like some kind of signal. A signal that guides us when we're lost. A signal that points to shelter when we have nowhere to go. And a signal that illuminates the friends that stand by us. I parked my car at a corner a little way off from the railroad road and watched the others gather, following the signal. Hobie first went into the container, followed by Suga, JK, V, and RM. What do they look like now? What are they talking about now? It wasn't that I didn't want to meet them, but this was only the beginning. The time wasn't ripe yet. Someday we'll all get together again. We'll all laugh together amidst the signal. We'll all laugh together, amidst that signal. This is as far as I'll go today. I turned my car around. Okay, so Jin basically got them all together, but didn't actually go in to see any of them. Because I'm assuming with this, like he's saying, this is as far as I'll go today. I turned my car around. So this is the start of him seeing how things will work out if he at least just gets them together. Like, how is this going to play out? And then try again if it doesn't work type of thing. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, I guess I should keep reading to find out more. I've read this before, but I mean, we're talking almost a year and a half ago now, because I think their comeback was last April, if I'm not wrong, for Persona. And I finished this literally the night before their comeback. I finished reading all the notes in the webtoon, like, the day before, night before, or something like that, but before their comeback. So, like, when was April 4? We're in 7. So, about a year and 3 months ago is when I read this last. And I haven't looked at it since. So, I'm trying to remember everything that is going on. So, it's almost like I feel like I'm reading it for the first time, but, like, I know I'm not, because, like, all of this sounds so familiar. And I'm like, oh, yeah. So, as I'm reading, my head's, I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right, that happened. Like, that keeps happening to me as I continue reading this. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
It'd be like that.
It'd be like that. She's not asleep, guys, by the way. She's just here. I'll smack her if she sleeps. Don't worry. I'll just go. You know, kind of like the person did with JK with the attendance book. I'll just do that to her. Okay. We are on... Jin is still 22. We're now on April 28th, so a couple weeks later. And we are on RM. I knew something was wrong with V. Although he pretended to be fine, his anxiety came through in his behavior, expressions, and voice no matter how hard he tried. It wasn't about getting arrested for graffiti. To V, graffiti was a game. It was fun. The wounds and bruises that sometimes colored his face must be from his violent dad, but that wasn't the reason either. When his face was battered, V exaggerated even more, acting jovial and talking nonstop. V seemed to be in a nightmare. I didn't press him to talk about it because I decided to wait until he was ready. I also doubted that I was qualified to be the one to listen to his troubles. I tried to act as a big brother and pretend to be mature, but I wasn't there when the others were going through their most difficult times. They said I was mature and grown up, but that wasn't true. V reminded me of what I experienced in that country village. In fact, the two had nothing in common. I was aware of that when I was living in that country village, but that boy had reminded me of V, just as V now reminds me of him. I have a favor to ask. What was the favor? Did the scooter really skid on damp leaves? Were the dogs still barking their heads off? What about my parents? I shook my head. I stood up to force those thoughts to scatter. Just as I was about to step out of the container, V began tossing and turning like he was having a nightmare. V awoke with a start when I shook his shoulders and sat there absent-mindedly for a long time. He just let his tears run down his face and rambled on. He said Suga died, JK fell off the rooftop, and I got caught in a fight. He said that he had had that dream repeatedly. It was so vivid that it felt like reality, and reality felt like a dream. Don't leave me. The face of the boy in the country village was superimposed on V's face. I couldn't bring myself to give him an answer. I couldn't bring myself to say that he didn't need to worry because I wasn't going anywhere. So it sounds like V had a premonition in his dreams, and he keeps having these dreams. Suga dying, JK falling off the rooftop, and RM getting caught in a fight. It says he had that dream repeatedly. She's making a pouty, sad face, by the way. You guys can't see because she's here. Yeah. The Things with Wings is the next part. Okay. So, we are on Jin is still 22. It is May 2nd. So, like, I don't know, 5 days later. Okay. I was so nervous. Oh, sorry, we're on Jin. This is Jin. I forgot to say that, I think. I was so nervous that my fingers stiffened. I clenched and unclenched my fists. What if I fail? I'd done this repeatedly, but I felt terrified each time. I took a slow, deep breath and thought about Suga. He must be drunk by now, clicking his lighter with one hand and holding his phone with the other. He might be lying on the couch, contemplating the reasons why he should go on living, or the reasons not to. How does Suga see the world and himself? I faced this question every time I tried to save him. I couldn't understand how he could keep trying to destroy himself. It didn't mean I was overjoyed living in this world or that each and every day of my life was filled with happiness. In fact, I was never captivated by anything, not even by life and death. Looking back, I was no different when I first started this. Would I be able to straighten out the errors and mistakes and save us all? I didn't grasp the depth and weight of this question. It was true that I desperately wanted to save all of us. No one deserves to die, to despair, to be suppressed, and to be despised. On top of that, they were my friends. We might have had our flaws and scars and have been twisted up and distorted. We might have been nobodies, but now they're legends. Sorry. Okay. Sorry. You haven't seen that yet. I still have to show her the part 1 and part 2 of that. We might have been nobodies, but we were alive. We had days to live, plans to follow, and dreams to fulfill. At first, I didn't think much of it. I thought it all depended on how much effort I put in after I figured out who I needed to save and from what. That was what I had thought. I believed I could solve it all by persuading them and changing things. It was that simple and naive. I was that simple and naive. But it was no more than an attempt to save my own skin. After a series of trials and errors, I had a realization. It was so simple to save the others. Yoongi wasn't easy to handle. He was probably the most difficult of all. He was always changing the time and place of his attempts at suicide. I had to approach him differently than the others. A solution that worked fine the last time didn't work the next. Just when I thought I had finally unraveled one mystery, it led to another hitch. At first, I couldn't put my finger on his reasons. After everything, all I could guess was that Suga's distress was connected to his inner conflict. RM got caught in a fight because of those rude customers at the gas station, but Suga was different. He had no definite target and no definite cause. He had had too many variables. I tried to imagine what was going on in Suga's head. Once I followed him secretly for hours. His footsteps were insecure and unpredictable. He staggered through the night streets and tried to fling himself into the fire. He sometimes squatted on the ground and listened to music that flowed out of somewhere inside an underground shopping arcade. After a night of following him, I realized how dry, dull, and flat my own life was. It wasn't that I envied Suga. The suffering he must have endured, going from one extreme to the other, were beyond my imagination. All I could do was watch him stagger on. One setback was always followed by another. A new layer of despair came down even before the previous one was stripped. I might not be able to save Yoongi after all. I couldn't find a breakthrough, but at that moment, hope flew in. I once heard that hope had wings. It was a little bird with wings. A bird flew into Suga's workroom, which was in an abandoned building in the middle of a redevelopment neighborhood. It had been decided to demolish the neighborhood a long time ago, but it was left deserted when the redevelopment plans stalled. The bird flew in a broken window. Suga was standing in the middle of the workroom with a lighter in his hand. The entire workroom smelled strongly of gasoline. I was standing right outside the door. I was about to jump in when I heard a big thud and a flapping of wings. The door was half open, so I peeked through. Suga had his back to me. The bird collapsed on the floor. It fluttered its wings again, but failed to rise into the air. Suga stood completely still and looked down at the bird. I still couldn't see his face. The bird flopped around the workroom in search of a way out, but it bumped its wings into the wall and the chair, and the feathers that fell out drifted around the floor. Suga was just gazing at it. His hand holding the lighter still hung in the air. He finally dropped his arm, sank down, and covered his head with both hands. I went into his workroom that night. It was spacious but desolate. A dirty sofa, chair, and piano were all I could find. Crumpled pieces of paper were scattered all over the floor. He must have tried to start a fire. Some of them looked like lines of music with sentences of lyrics scribbled on them. I looked around. I found things with wings. The bird was crouching behind the piano with dried blood around the wounds on its wings. It seemed petrified and cowered in fear when I came near. Tiny drops of blood were smeared on the floor. Breadcrumbs and water were set out in front of the piano. I took a step back. Even if I let it out the window, it wouldn't be able to fly yet. How long would it take for the wounds to heal? Would Suga remain safe and sound while the bird was staying here? Then a thought came to my mind. Suga must have stopped himself because of this. This wounded little bird, a fragile thing that couldn't protect or save itself, a tiny being that entrusted its life to Suga. After that day, I had a realization. If all the variables related to Suga's suicidal attempts existed within Suga, why not drag at least one of them out? I'd have to seek that right target and create the right situation. A variable that could give Suga a reason to stop destroying himself. Someone who could share his scars and desires. That someone wasn't me. It's not something you can do alone. I became painfully aware of the full meaning of those words I had heard not long after all this started. I realized that JK had the same look in his eyes as Suga when RM said it. JK still has that photo. He meant the photo we took together on the beach in high school. RM seemingly wanted to let me know that JK was still thinking of me, but I was reminded of a completely different scene. On the day we went looking for that rock that made dreams come true, we laughed, complained, and played under the scorching sun, and devastated at finding the rock had vanished. I cried out my dream, which I couldn't even hear, to the sea. At that moment, I saw JK yelling some question at Suga. I couldn't hear what he was saying, but I could sense it was important to JK. What did he ask Suga? Why him? I hadn't given it a second thought back then. Suga was not as lively as Hobie, and not as friendly as Jimin, and not as reliable as RM. Why was it Suga? I suddenly realized it was Suga who saved JK. The two had the same look in their eyes. It wasn't difficult to send JK to Suga. JK was alone at the school and at home. He had nowhere to go after school. He usually spent his time at Hobie's burger joint or wandered around RM's container. I locked the door of the container and made Hobie leave the store before JK dropped by. After roaming around for quite a while, JK finally headed to Suga's workroom. He seemed to have mixed feelings. Should I go in? What if he thinks I'm annoying? Expectation and fear both swirled across JK's face. Since that day, he visited Suga's workroom every day. At first, Suga flatly told him to go away, but he didn't really mean it. A shadow appeared shortly. It was JK. I burrowed myself deeper into the seat. They didn't know I was back yet, except RM, who I had met at the gas station. RM said everybody would be thrilled, but I refused to meet them. I was waiting for the right moment. I had to wait until all of us were together. Maybe we were tied up together with strings and supporting one another. It wasn't easy to trace this web of strings. It was like an intricate maze. When some strings and knots were figured out, other parts snapped. When one string was pulled too tightly, everything collapsed in an instant. I had to connect the dots, one string with another, closely observing the others, to get them to save one another without realizing it. JK stopped in front of Suga's workroom and looked up at the second floor. He didn't look too cheerful. Suga had gone through a difficult time over the past 10 days. He had been drinking heavily and tormenting himself. I pushed JK into this depth of agony. Suga's suffering must have been too overwhelming for JK. Once JK gave up on Suga. Back then, Suga threw himself into the flames. But cruelly, Suga didn't die. JK never forgave himself for failing to stop him. About 10 minutes had passed since JK went into Suga's workroom. The sound of something shattering came out of the second floor window, and Suga with busted lips appeared at the entrance of the building, staggering. He hurried down the sloping road. I looked up at the window on the second floor. JK must have been sitting up there by the shattered mirror. He must be thinking he couldn't save Suga. He must be thinking it was hopeless. I started the car after seeing JK run out of the building. Suga must be heading towards the motel down the block. I should leave a clue for JK to go to Suga's whereabouts. That was all I could do. I dropped some bloodstained tissue near the gate of the motel. Sitting in the car, I saw JK climbing the stairs of the motel. I left a photo in front of the mirror in Yoongi's workroom early this morning. It was a photo that all of us had taken that day we went to the beach. Did JK see the photo? I couldn't know if JK followed Suga because of that photo. If JK decided to give it a try, seeing a small seed of hope, or if JK was motivated by something else. I wasn't sure how JK could save Suga. That decisive moment in life, that last moment for each of us, including JK and Suga, can't be interfered with. It can only be shared by those who suffer the same wound, understand each other's fears, dreams, and defeats, and therefore see each other to the core. I looked up at the motel window. I wondered what JK and Yoongi were talking about in there, and desperately wished that the thing with wings would be able to take off into the sky from there. Okay, so now I need you to talk. Talk to us.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
Little puppet master we have here.
Yeah, he's trying, because he realized, obviously, he's tried to do it all on his own multiple times and has completely failed. And he now realizes he can't save them all solely himself.
Yes.
He's going to have to rely on finding out a way to get them to save each other. And he's starting to figure out how the pattern and how he could possibly make this work. Do we want to turn on the chat, or are we scared they might spoil something?
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
Okay, we're not turning on the chat yet. Interesting though, huh? I like
sneaky.
Oh shit. Yeah, I like this part because you're now starting to see. Oh, I see what he's doing. I see what's going on.
I'll see him. I see him. That little sneaky sneak.
He's trying though. I mean,
he's trying.
Yeah. But every time it fails, he has to go back and start again. Gee, can you imagine?
That would be exhausting.
So mentally exhausting and emotionally draining to see your friends die over and over again and keep trying to figure out a way to prevent it from happening. I can't even imagine. And how many times has he had to do this? And just, Jesus. I mean, probably at least 7 or 6, at least 6 of him just trying to save each other or himself, or trying to save everyone himself, let alone trying that in different orders, finally realizing he can't do it all on his own. He needs to rely on them. Like, oh, Jesus. You good? Okay. We are on page 96. And this is year 22. It is May 2nd. Same day. So same day. It's May 2nd. We're now on Suga. Sorry, guys. Suga. The sheet caught fire and instantly flared up. Everything dingy and shabby died away in the unbearable heat. The musty smell, the depressing dampness, and the dark and dismal light were no longer recognizable. Only pain was left. Physical pain that seemed to boil in the flames. My fingertips felt as if they were melting down with blisters forming. My dad's expressionless face and the sound of music dispersed into the air. It was different. I was different than him. Dad didn't understand me, and I didn't understand him. If I tried, I would have been able to. Would I have been able to persuade him? I don't think so. All I could do was hide, defy, and run away. Sometimes I felt like I wasn't him. I was trying to break free from. It wasn't him I was trying to break free from. At such moments, fear rushed over me. Why am I running away from them? Why does it take escape? What does it take to escape from myself? I cannot read right now. Why am I running away from them? No, that's not what it says. Just kidding. Jeez, honestly, I just can't. All of a sudden, I stopped my ability to be able to read. I'm feeling major cross-eyed at the moment. Okay, hold on.
You need to take a moment.
Okay. What am I running away from them? Then. What am I running away from then? What does it take to escape from myself?
Jesus.
Everything looked hopeless. I thought I heard someone calling me, but I didn't turn my head. I couldn't breathe, I couldn't move, but I knew. It was JK. He must have gotten mad. He would mourn for me. I just wanted to flop down. I wanted to put an end to the smoke, heat, pain, and fear. JK shouted something, but I still couldn't hear. Everything before my eyes fell apart. It was the last moment. I lifted my head. My last sight of this world was this dirty, isolated room, the red-hot flames and rolling heat, and JK's twisted face. JK, same day. I looked up and found myself in front of the container. I opened the door and went inside. I laid down, curled up, and covered myself with all the clothes I could find. I felt cold and my body trembled. It was hard to pull myself together and lie still. I felt like crying, but tears wouldn't come. The scene of Suga standing among the flames kept replaying in my mind. Flames blazed up from the sheet. I couldn't think. I didn't know what to do. I wasn't a good talker. I couldn't even express my own feelings, let alone persuade someone else. Tears welled up and a cough lodged in my throat. It became even harder to speak. The only words I could utter as I jumped into the flames were, I thought we were all going to the sea together. What's wrong? Are you having a nightmare? Someone shook my shoulder. I opened my eyes to find RM. A sense of relief overcame me. RM put his hand on my forehead and told me I had a fever. It was true. The inside of my mouth felt like it was burning up, but I was freezing cold at the same time. My head ached and my throat was sore. I could barely swallow the pills RM brought me. Go back to sleep. We'll talk later. I nodded, then I asked him, will I be able to grow into an adult like you? All right, we're on to the next segment of the book.
This is a long one.
I know this is a long one. So I think we're going to, how many pages did I say we had? 229, 230, something like that? Yeah, 229 is the amount of pages that we have in this book. But we also have the other notes that someone, I'm trying to remember, has someone linked me? If someone hasn't, I know, I'm not asking. If someone hasn't, please do either in this or email me. My email is saywhatreacts.yt@gmail.com. So yeah, saywhatreacts.yt@gmail.com. I feel like Ebony might have already sent it to me and I can't remember. If someone has not, please link me, just please link me the English notes, like the notes translated into English for from Persona and from Map of the Soul 7. So if someone can please link those to me, because obviously I would need to add those to this. And I don't know how long those notes are. So,
I feel like we could read a little bit more, then stop, and then pick up, and then if we have to do
a part 3, we can do a part 3.
Yeah.
But I think we could probably get to it in 2 parts.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, maybe here. So we'll end at 128 because this is the whole next gray area.
There we go.
So, okay, so we're starting this gray area. You can see the gray page, and we'll end at this gray page. So we're on page 100 right now. Who's calling me, bitch? I don't know you. Don't be calling my phone. Anyway, so we're at page 100 right now, and we're going to read through page 128. And then we'll call it a day on this live. We'll discuss a little bit, call it a day on this live. And then next Sunday, we'll pick back up on page 130 and go from there. Yes. Okay. I hope you guys are having fun so far. Hope I haven't put any, I'm sure I've probably put a couple people to sleep.
I mean, you've been losing people this.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of people who are who are overseas, who are international, where it's late at night for them, so I don't doubt it.
You guys have been falling asleep. What time is it? Oh, it's almost 4 now.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, because you can see how long we've been live. We've been live for 143 minutes.
Oh, shit.
We can only be live for another 100 minutes until,
You got 100 minutes to read 28 pages.
That should be fine. I mean, I've read 100 pages in less than, in 145 minutes. You good?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's do this.
You do
Okay.
this.
So, Jen is still 22. It is now May 10th. And we are on Hobie. So this is 8 days after the incident with JK and Sugar. Okay? My nose
I
itches.
just stuck my finger in a chocolate chip.
Good times. Fun times. Ooh, those look soft AF.
It is soft AF.
Ooh, those look delicious. Okay. But you know, I have this weird, like, it's obviously some sort of allergy, or there's something, I think there might be, I don't think it's an allergy. I think there's something wrong with, like, my esophagus. Sorry, I just was reminded, did you ever see that clip of, remember, Bang Chan? And he was like, we have the esophagus. That's what it just reminded me of. Anyway, I think I have some sort of problem in my throat. After I eat, I tend to have to clear my throat a lot. So I'm always like, and it's so fucking annoying. I can't imagine how annoying it is to, like, people. So I'm going to refrain from having a cookie right now so that it prevents me from possibly having to clear my throat constantly while I'm trying to read. So you're welcome. Okay, let's continue. Let's move on. So, like I said, Jen is still 22. It is 8 days later. It's May 10th, and we are on Hobie. My narcolepsy occurred anytime, anywhere. I collapsed without warning while working and blacked out suddenly on the street. I pretended that I wasn't so concerned about it in front of those who worried about me. I'd never told anyone that I couldn't bear to count to 10. I always ended up having dreams about my mom when I blacked out. The dreams were all alike. I was heading somewhere with Mom on a bus. I was excited and cheerful. I read the signs that passed by, watched her profile, and kept fidgeting. I was about 7 in my dreams. Then it suddenly crossed my mind. Mom had left me. I was 20 when I realized that. Mom was still sitting in the seat in front of me on the bus. She looked exactly the same from behind. When I whispered, Mom, she turned her head as if she heard me. Her silhouette glimmered against the bright sunlight, and her hair fluttered in the wind, just like at the amusement park that day. The saddest part was that I knew. I knew that I would awake from this dream if she turned her head further and looked at me. I tried to tell her not to turn around, but my voice failed. I kept trying to shout, Mom, don't turn around, don't turn around. But she always turned around and looked at me, and just when our eyes were about to meet, everything turned white, and the pale fluorescent light on the ceiling of the hospital room appeared. It was the same today. When I opened my eyes, the first thing that came into sight was the fluorescent light on the ceiling. I was changed into a patient gown. The doctor said I seemed to have a concussion and I needed a more thorough check. I was moved to a 6-person hospital room. I felt exhausted. I always felt exhausted when I regained consciousness. So, it has been a minute since we've heard from our boy Jimin.
This is true.
So, this is the next day, and we're on Jimin. Thank you. Coos Carrot, thank you. Thank you. So, Jimin. I was transferred to the surgery ward about 2 weeks ago. At first, it felt strange to see people coming and going so freely. Soon, I found that it was just another part of the hospital. There were patients, nurses, and doctors. I was given drugs and injections. All in all, it was about the same as the psychiatric ward. The only difference was that the surgery ward had a longer hallway with the lounge halfway down. Of course, there was one more major difference. I was allowed to freely roam around the ward. At night, I sneaked out of my room and wandered around. I jumped and danced in the lounge and ran down the first floor hallway at full speed. Those were simple joys that weren't allowed in the psychiatric ward. One day, I discovered something strange about myself while running down the hall. At some point, past the kitchenette and emergency staircase, my body just came to a grinding halt for no reason. I still had about 5 more steps to reach the end, but I stopped and wasn't able to take another step. At the end of the hallway was a door. The door opened to the outside world, outside the hospital. The door had no off-limits sign, and no one came running to stop me, but I just couldn't go any further. I soon found out why. That was the stretch of the hallway, just like the psychiatric ward. As if a line was drawn on the floor, I came to a stop at exactly the point where the psychiatric ward hallway would have ended. They called me a good kid in the psychiatric ward. I sometimes had seizures, but I was mostly obedient. I smiled and went online without anyone being wiser. I knew my limit. The hallway of the psychiatric ward would be covered in 24 even strides. When I was first hospitalized, I was 8. I cried and demanded to go home with my mom. Holding on to the iron door at the end of the hallway, I frantically tried to open the door until the nurses came running and gave me an injection. For a while, the nurses tensed up whenever I stepped into the hall. Now, no one paid attention to me if I ran down the hall and reached the door. I already knew the door was locked anyways. I just kept running down to the door and coming back. I no longer begged them to open the door or wept. But the world is full of people more idiotic than me. They held and shook the door endlessly. They were suppressed by the staff, given injections, and tied to their beds. If they had behaved just a bit more acceptably, their lives could have become much more comfortable. Those idiots didn't know any better. I wasn't like this in the beginning. I was also dropped senselessly by the sedatives forcefully injected by the nurses and got caught trying to escape from the hospital in the early days. I called Mom, crying violently enough to go hoarse several times. "I'm not sick. I'm okay now. Please come and take me home." I stayed up all night for several days, but Mom didn't come. When I was taken to the hospital after they found me unconscious at the grass flower arboretum, my parents didn't ask any questions. They ignored the fact that I had blacked out there. It was the same when I developed seizures. They hospitalized me, discharged me after some time, and transferred me to another school. My family reputation was important to them. A son with a mental illness was unacceptable. I didn't become a good kid overnight. There was no dramatic event or memorable incident. I just continued to give up on myself bit by bit, just as a fingernail grows. I stopped crying and longing to go outside at some point. I stopped dashing towards the door down the hallway. I attended school in between hospital stays, but I knew I'd be sent back eventually. It felt refreshing to look up into the sky and enjoy the fragrance of each season, but I tried not to hold them in my memory. They'd soon be kept for me anyways. Friends, too. A history of mental illness was not helpful in making friends. There was one exception. I met a group who felt like true friends. It was almost 2 years ago. I tried not to remember them, but I couldn't help recalling those days. I had to part with them after I had a seizure at the bus stop after school. The last scene I remembered was the window of the grass flower arboretum shuttle bus opening. That's when I blacked out. When I opened my eyes, I was at a hospital. Mom was over in the corner talking on her phone. My mind whirled for a while. I didn't know where I was or how I got there. I gazed around and discovered the windows with metal bars. Then it all came back to me. The blue sky I saw on my way home, the silly games we played at the bus stop, the Arboretum shuttle bus coming closer, and the glares through the bus windows. I shut my eyes, but it was too late. The front gate of the Arboretum appeared before my eyes. It was a school picnic day in first grade. I was running through heavy rain with my backpack over my head. A warehouse came into sight. The door was left open. I stepped inside. The sticky, musty smell, the sound of my heavy breathing, and the screechy, metallic sound. I sat up in my bed and screamed, "No! I don't remember. I forgot." My mom came running, calling out to someone. I shook my head violently. I swung my arms in every direction to get rid of that smell, touch, sound, and sight, but the memories came flooding in. The dam that held them back the past 10 years collapsed, and every detail of that day surged through my mind, eyes, cells, and nails as if it was happening all again. I had a seizure and was given an injection. The drug flowed through my blood vessels, and I quickly dozed off. I closed my eyes and wished that this was all a dream, and that when I woke again, I wouldn't be able to recall anything. That wish was just a wish. Instead, a cycle of seizures, injections, and injection-induced sleep that felt like falling off a cliff continued. After I awoke from that sleep, my whole body felt like it was covered with mud that looked like blood. No matter how hard I tried to wash it off, that warehouse smell lingered. I scrubbed until I bled, but I still felt dirty. When the doctor asked me about it in a concerned tone, I trembled and apologized at first. I repeatedly said that I was sorry. It was all my fault. Please let me forget all about it. Then I tried to pretend nothing had happened. I didn't know what he was talking about. I didn't remember anything. So I gazed at the doctor and smiled. I don't remember anything. Did the doctor actually believe me? I wasn't sure. But what was important was that I became a good kid. My life at the hospital was peaceful. It was an ideal place to idle my time away. I didn't long for anything, and I didn't feel constrained, scared, or lonely. That was until last night before I met Hobie again. I was transferred to the surgery ward because I fought with the idiot who kept trying to get to the door at the end of the hallway despite the nurse's constraint. Both of us were injured and were put in 2 different rooms. The fifth floor of the surgery ward. I was put in a 6-person room. My bed was in the middle, and patients on either side changed frequently. I woke up in the middle of the night. The patient next to me seemed to be having a nightmare and continued to groan. The groaning sound came from my bed on the left. I pulled the blanket over my head. I was sick and tired of nightmares, and I didn't need to hear this. I tried to put up with this for a while, but his nightmare went on and on. Finally, I got up and stepped over to his bed. I tapped his shoulder and tried to help. It's okay, it's just a dream. I found out this morning that patient was Hobie. I drew the curtains for my breakfast, and Hobie was sitting on the bed next to mine. He seemed glad to see me again. Was I glad too? Probably in the corner of my mind. He had hung out with me and taken care of me, a transfer who was a complete stranger at his school. He also took the long way home with me after school. I still recall the days when we used to walk home with popsicles in our hands. But he was also the one who saw my seizure at the bus stop before I came here. He was the one who brought me to this hospital. He must have run into my mom. I didn't want to explain my situation to him. I got out of the room with my meal left untouched. Hobie seemed to follow me, but I knew every corner of this hospital. He couldn't catch up with me. I roamed around the hospital all day long. From the stairs, I saw the others, even JK when they came to see Hobie. They hadn't changed much. All that afternoon, I climbed up and down the stairs and hung around the other floors. I leaned against the window at the end of the hallway and counted passing cars. I grew upset. I had skipped all my meals, and there wasn't anywhere to sit and relax comfortably. It was annoying to hear the peals of laughter coming from my room. I got angrier because I couldn't figure out why I was so angry. I came back to my bed at night. "Where have you been?" he asked me casually. Then he handed me a piece of bread. It must have been because I was starving, but that bread was warm and delicious. I couldn't help confessing to him that I'd long been confined in the psychiatric ward, that I was briefly transferred to the surgery ward, but would be sent back soon, that I wouldn't be discharged in the near future, that, as he witnessed, I was a person who had seizures on the street, that I was a patient who might be dangerous, and I didn't want to add the last part, but I thought it'd stop him from criticizing me. He paused for a minute, then he took away my bread. "Jimin, don't exaggerate. Don't you know that I have narcolepsy? I can black out anytime or anywhere. Am I dangerous too?" He took a bite of my bread. I just froze, not knowing what to say, and then he said, "What, you want this back?" He bit into the bread again and returned it to me. I took it back right away, and he asked me again, "Are seizures infectious?" "Narcolepsy isn't. Don't worry." He hadn't changed a bit. He's so cute. Oh, okay, well, let me get some water.
Could you imagine being narcoleptic?
Oh, man. You can't, I'm assuming you can't drive if you have narcolepsy.
I would assume not.
Because at any moment, you can't,
out.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the next day. This is Hobie. I opened the emergency exit and darted down the stairs. My heart was hammering in my chest. I definitely caught sight of my mom in the hallway. As soon as I looked back, the elevator door opened and a crowd of people poured out. Mom vanished from my view. I desperately jostled through the crowd and saw her going through the emergency exit in the distance. I followed her into the emergency staircase and ran down the stairs 2 at a time. I went down several flights without a break. Mom stopped. I took one more hurried step. She turned around the corner. Another step down the staircase. Mom's face gradually became visible. Then my foot slipped and my entire body lurched forward. I swung my arms to keep my balance, but it was too late. I shut my eyes tightly, scared I'd tumble down the stairs. At that moment, someone grabbed my arm from behind. I narrowly avoided falling headlong down the stairs. When I turned my head, Jimin was standing there looking startled. I quickly looked ahead again, too hurried to thank him.
We've seen that before.
We saw that in the highlight reels. I saw a woman. She looked perplexed. There was a little boy next to her. The woman kept blinking her big eyes. She wasn't my mom. She stepped back with her little boy hidden behind her. I just stood on the staircase without a word, gazing at her face. I couldn't remember what I said then to get out of that situation. I must have mumbled that I was sorry that I mistook her for someone else. Come to think of it, I didn't even ask Jimin while he was there. My head was a mess and I couldn't process any of the details. She wasn't my mom. Maybe I knew that before I began chasing her. It had been more than 10 years since that day I was left alone in the amusement park. She must have aged and looked different from what I remembered. Even if I met her again, it wouldn't be easy to recognize her. Her face was almost completely erased from my memory. I looked back. Jimin was just tagging along without a word. He said he'd stayed at the hospital since high school, since I last saw him in the emergency room. When I asked him if he wanted to get out, he just kept hanging back, looking confused. Maybe Jimin was also bound within a web of memories like me. I took a step towards him. Jimin, let's get out of here. Okay. I'm assuming this was this also the highlight reel, or was this, no, this was this Spring Day?
When they ran out of the hospital.
Was it Spring Day? When?
Yeah, because he ran through the hospital doors and then his friend.
Or no, that was Euphoria. That was
I
Euphoria.
don't remember anymore.
That was Euphoria. Yeah, because they were in like the little, like, I don't know, cafeteria, like lounge area, and they were all having fun, and then he changed shirts and they were running down. I'm pretty sure that was Euphoria.
Anyway.
I think. If it wasn't Euphoria, then it was the highlight reel. Ooh, no, I think it was the highlight reel. Shit. Whatever. It was something. It was Euphoria or the highlight reel. It was one or the other, damn it.
Euphoria.
I think it was Euphoria because the highlight reel was them in the studio. It was
Euphoria.
Yeah. It was Euphoria. You're welcome. Okay. Between the two of us, we'll figure it out.
Exactly.
Okay. We are on 3 days later. We're back to Jimin. Okay. 3 days passed after Hobie was discharged from the hospital. I didn't want to say goodbye, so I followed him secretly, while I kept hiding and tagging behind. Hobie walked down the long hallway towards the door. He nonchalantly passed the line near the emergency exit where I'd always come to a stop. I watched him from behind. Without realizing it, I stopped right there. I could take at least 5 more strides, but I stood there. Hobie slowly reached out and gently pushed the door open. The dazzling sunlight poured in through the open door, along with outside air. It smelled a bit pungent, but felt refreshing at the same time. The landscape on the other side of the door washed over me. When Hobie stepped outside, the door began to close. I could slide through if I ran now. I looked down at the ground, the limit line, which was visible to no one but me, but was still there. I turned around. Or, I was about to turn around when someone passed by, shoving my shoulder hard. I fell forward onto the floor. I raised my head, still lying on the ground. I had crossed the line. The idiot was running past me, heading for the door. He was the one who had shoved me. He continued to jostle others on his way. He didn't pay attention to them. As he pushed the door as hard as he could, the sunlight streamed in again. He ran outside. A nurse chased him, but he was faster. The door began to close again. I sprang to my feet, 1 step over my line. I took 1 more step forward. It was only 3 more strides to get to the door, but I turned around again, well aware of my limit. A stranger already occupied Hobie's bed, so I closed my eyes but I couldn't get to sleep. I couldn't help but dwell on what he had said before he was discharged. Jimin, let's get out of here. He wore a complicated expression that I had never seen before. He'd never looked or sounded that way before. I was just standing there looking hesitant, not knowing how to respond. There was one more reason I couldn't stop thinking about his words. There was an incident that occurred right before then. I was waiting for the elevator on the 2nd floor where I had physical therapy. I tripped while scuffing with the idiot, and my wrist was injured, and I didn't heal well. I was getting impatient at Hobie's discharge was approaching, but the elevator was stuck on the 9th floor. I thought I heard someone calling my name just as I was thinking of taking the stairs. That someone was standing in front of the emergency exit at the end of the hallway. I couldn't quite make out who was with the sunlight coming through the window. When I took a step forward, the person suddenly ran through the emergency exit. The person's profile came into sight momentarily, but I still couldn't recognize who it was. Who could that be? I walked towards the emergency staircase, feeling strange. Jin. That's Jin made the thing get stuck on the floor, so he had to take the stairs so he could run into Hobie.
That little,
right? That has to be.
Pulling one string, and I'm pulling the next, and I'm pulling.
Oh my god, that's so cool. I don't know if I realized that when I read this the first time. Did I realize it when I read this the first time? I'm sure I probably did. Yeah, that was totally Jin.
Because he didn't leave.
He was like, who could that be? As I walked towards the emergency staircase, feeling strange. As I opened the emergency exit door, I put my head in. Someone passed by quickly. I instinctively pulled my head back. We almost collided. Mom! Hearing the desperate cry, I stuck my head back in. It was Hobie frantically leaping down the stairs, and there was a woman standing at the foot of the staircase. What's all this? I stepped onto the landing. Hobie lost his footing right at that moment. I darted forward and reached out my hand without thinking and caught him. Hobie faltered as I abruptly slowed him down, and I barely managed to keep my balance. He didn't say anything until we had climbed back up the stairs and stepped into the fifth floor hallway. He remained silent while we walked to the hospital room. Then, he suddenly stopped and looked at me. Jimin, let's get out of here. I couldn't answer. He told me firmly, I'll come back for you. I replied, I'm going back to the psychiatric ward in a few days. 3 days passed. I was going back to the psychiatric ward the next day. I tidied up my belongings and laid down. I tossed and turned for a while, but soon dozed off. I awoke with the sense of something falling. The hospital was a strange place, and it was hard to sleep soundly. I could feel everything around me with my eyes closed, and even the smallest sounds kept me wide awake. The hospital room was pitch dark. A breeze blew in through the open window. The curtains flapped among the flow of the already sultry air. Amidst. I never say amidst. I always say among, because I hate pronouncing that word. Amidst. I hate pronouncing that word. So I always go among. I literally switch it to among every time. The ceiling, the floor, darkness, and silence. They were all familiar. I was about to switch on the nightstand when someone's hand held me back. It was Hobie. I sat up in surprise, and he put his forefinger on his lips. We all came together, he said. They were waiting for me outside. He reached out his hand. I was still buried under so many fears. I was invisible to my parents. I'd be taken as no more than an escapee from a psychiatric ward to the outside world. It was safer just to stay in the hospital as an obedient patient. I wasn't sure I'd adjust well out there. I could think of a million reasons not to leave. Hobie didn't hesitate. He grabbed my hand, brought me to my feet, and handed me a t-shirt. I was out of bed before I knew it. The hallway was still and quiet. A few nurses were stationed at the desk. They were all occupied with their own work and didn't even look our way. But Hobie and I walked as quietly as possible, tensed up. The elevator was waiting on the 5th floor. When the door slid open, RM and Jin were standing inside. We got off on the 1st floor and stepped into the hallway when Hobie abruptly pushed me into a door on the left. It was a lounge. It was usually crowded with patients and caregivers during the day, but at night it was quiet and dark with only the murky lights of street lamps flowing in. A candle was lit and JK and V came out of the darkness. Suga's face was also visible behind them. On the table were snacks and cans of soda. This is 100% Euphoria. A nurse came through the rear door just when I took a sip of soda. Before I finished saying hello to them, the nurse asked what we were doing here, and Suga said it was a birthday party. She stepped into the lounge. Are all of you inpatients? I don't think so. I was the only one wearing a patient gown. Without realizing it, I tightened my hand around the soda can. The aluminum can crumpled with an eerie sound. Hobie grabbed my shoulder. It's okay. It was Namjoon. When I give the signal, just start running. It must have been JK. Jin, who was already by the front door, threw us a glance and went outside. Hobie looked around us and spit out in a low voice, Run, Jimin. We all started running. I was caught up in the excitement and ran with them. V lost his footing and almost fell, and the snacks and plastic soda bottles flew in the air. We darted nimbly through the tables and poured out into the 1st floor hallway. The loud voices and footsteps of the nurses continued to pursue us. The hallway stretched out before us just as it did yesterday. My heart pounded as I passed the kitchenette and came to the emergency stairs. Without realizing it, my pace slowed. My head was bombarded with questions. Would it really be okay? Am I sure? It might even be harder out there. I may not have anyone on my side. It'd be safer and more comfortable in here. It's not too late. I'd better stop here. I'd better admit my limits, and I'd better be a good kid. My line was just a few steps away. I looked back. Now janitors had joined in and were chasing the others. My hand holding the t-shirt trembled violently. They seemed to be right on my tail. Maybe I had no chance. It's okay, Park Jimin. Run. The voice pushed me forward. I took one more step. I crossed over the line. I had only taken one step closer to the door, but a dramatic change occurred. Something inside me rolled and pitched as if it had just leapt from one steep cliff to another. As I threw down my patient gown and put on the t-shirt, I took another step forward towards the door. The next step was faster, and the next even faster. The walls on both sides flashed by quickly. The door drew closer in big strides. Only 5 steps were left to get from the line to the door. For anyone else, it was just a short distance of 5 steps. But I hadn't dared come this far. This was the first time I had made it past the line on my own. The door was within reach. Once I pass through this door, the environment will be completely different from the one that has surrounded me. I refuse to think about what will happen next. I'll focus on taking one step at a time. I pushed the door with all my might. Every cell of my body collided with the outside air. There was no oppressive sunlight or fierce wind like I had always imagined. I felt like crying. The sound of my heartbeat reverberated in all directions.
My shoulder just popped.
Whew, okay. We only have about 10 more pages, and then we're going to call it a day. Okay, so we are still on Jimin. It is now May 16th, which is the next day. Hobie's house was up on the hillside. It was the rooftop room of a dilapidated multifamily building at the end of a dead end. The dead end was through a narrow, winding alleyway, away from the main street and up a long, steep climb. That was where he lived. When we entered the room, Hobie bragged that it was on the topmost floor of the city with the rest of the world placed at his feet. He was right. This rooftop room had a view of everything. When I looked straight down, I could see the train station and containers standing in a row along the railroad. RM was living in one of those containers. Just a little way off was the school we had attended together. While looking at our school, my line of sight reached a point across the river. A large apartment complex was perched at the foot of the mountain. That was where my house was. No, it was where my parents' house was. I had escaped the hospital without any plan. The hospital must have contacted my parents, and they must be looking for me by now. I didn't have the courage to meet them face to face yet. I couldn't go home. I had nowhere to go and no money. Hobie told me to follow him and led me here. That's how I ended up at Hobie's house. I looked over at the apartment complex again. I have to return there someday. I have to meet my parents and tell them I'm not going back to the hospital. I inhaled deeply, and Hobie came close and stood next to me. Same day, we're now on Hobie. I could be my most honest self at home. Sometimes I screamed at the top of my lungs and sang at the window. Sometimes I played music and danced like crazy. And sometimes I woke up at night weeping. When I did, I just lay there still, staring at the ceiling. But I never collapsed with narcolepsy at home. Jimin didn't go back home after he left the hospital. He came to my house and was now looking down at the city, leaning against the guardrail on the rooftop. He must be looking for our school, the 2-star burger joint, and the changing lights along the railroad like me. He must also be looking for his house. That was something in our human instincts. Everyone looks for their home when they climb somewhere high or spread out a large map. I thought of asking him why he didn't go home, but I gave up. His head must be a mess, and I didn't want to aggravate it. Besides, I could guess why based on how Jimin's mom reacted at the emergency room that day. In fact, I rarely asked my friends questions. I felt I knew the answers to most of them already, and I didn't want them to feel awkward, or they might find my questions too inquisitive and annoying. To be honest, I was always curious where the others were headed when they walked by my store, but I never ran out to ask them. Where was JK going with his wounds? Was Suga's workroom in that direction? Why did RM leave school? Where did V first learn graffiti? Come to think of it, I didn't know much about the others. Did you find it? I drew closer to Jimin and asked. Find what? Jimin sounded confused. Your house. Jimin nodded. I grew up in the orphanage right there. I pointed to a place beyond the railroad. Do you see the supermarket in the direction of the river from the gas station where RM works? Do you see the clover-shaped neon sign behind it? The orphanage is to the left of that neon sign. I lived there for more than 10 years. Jimin's eyes seemed to wonder why I was telling him all this. My friends already knew that I grew up in an orphanage. I considered it my home. I didn't force myself to think that for peace of mind. I really believed that it was my home, a home without Mom. I have something to confess, something I'd been lying about, that my narcolepsy was fake. That might have been why I couldn't ask anything about anyone. It wasn't because I was afraid of hurting them. It was because I had lied, because I didn't have the courage to be honest, because once I admitted it, I'd also have to admit that I had no one to call Mom, not just at the orphanage, but in the entire world. That must have been why I didn't ask any of them about their problems. Jimin wasn't good at hiding his feelings. His startled look was self-explanatory. I didn't know how to apologize to him. Jimin had agonized over me countless of times. He must have burst into tears when he first witnessed it. I didn't do it on purpose. I must have ignored that there was a way for me to be okay. I know this doesn't make sense, and I can't describe it clearly. Then are you okay now? Jimin, who'd been listening quietly for some time, turned his head towards me and asked the question. Am I okay now? I asked myself. Jimin was still looking at me. He was neither criticizing nor sympathizing with me. I look down at the brightly lit city below. Well, I don't know. We'll be able to figure it out as time goes by. I'm looking forward to it, aren't you? Jimin giggled, and I laughed along. 3 days later. Oh, sorry, I'm trying to... I have like this little like footstool beneath me, and I'm like trying to move it so I can get comfortable. Okay, that one's empty. Okay.
I'm so proud you drank a whole bottle of water.
I have to. My throat gets so dry doing this. Oh, I'm trying to open this with one hand. Yeah, my throat gets so dry when I like read out loud like this. And to be fair, that is a mini bottle of water.
It's still a bottle.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Jimin, 3 days later, May 19th. I still feel like my throat is like, can you hear it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can hear my voice is starting to sound like shit. Yeah. I could probably do that weird deep voice thing that like the people do, like that we love. You know. Oh my god, you've drank 2 waters already.
I have.
You're ahead of me. Okay. Oh, we only have like 6 pages left. Okay. May 19th. I had to reach... This is Jimin again. I had to return to the grass flower arboretum. I hope I'm saying that right, by the way. Because if I haven't been saying that right this whole time, with as many times as I've had to say that word, I've probably been annoying the hell out of people.
Oopsie.
Oh well. I had to return to the grass flower arboretum. I had to stop lying about not remembering what I had seen there. It was time to stop hiding in the hospital and put an end to my seizures. To do that, I had to go back there. But for days, I went to the shuttle bus stop and failed to get on the bus. After I watched the 3rd bus of the day pull away, Suga suddenly appeared and plunked down next to me. He said he came out because there was nothing to do and he was bored. Then he asked me what I was doing there. I kept my head bent low and kicked the ground with the toe of my sneaker. I was sitting there because I didn't have courage. I wanted to pretend that I was okay now, that I knew enough, and that I could easily overcome this, but I was afraid. I was afraid of not knowing what I was about to face, whether I would be able to endure it, and whether I'd have a seizure again. Suga looked relaxed, laid back. He murmured something that sounded like, "The weather is so nice," in a carefree manner. The weather really was nice, but I was so tense that I couldn't afford to look around, let alone enjoy the weather. The sky was blue. A mild breeze blew occasionally. The shuttle bus was approaching from a distance. The bus stopped and the door opened. The driver stared at me, and I asked Suga, "Will you go with me?" This is the next day, and now we're on Hobie. I left the police station with V. Thank you. I bowed and shouted all the more energetically, but I wasn't really in the mood. It wasn't far from the police station to V's house. If he lived farther from the police station, would he still be there this much? Okay, now hold on a second. We're now getting into the switch of pairs. Aren't we?
Because Jimin's with...
Jimin's now going to be with Suga. And I'm trying to remember the switch of pairs in the highlight reel. Because I remember in the highlight reel, we saw... all of a sudden, I remember in the room where Tae stabbed his father, but all of a sudden Hobie was there instead. Mm-hmm. And now this is Hobie with V getting him out of the... So yeah, so now we're on the switching of pairs. And yeah, it was Jimin and Suga in Blood, Sweat, and Tears. They were in the room together. He put the blindfold on him. So that's that pair. Hobie and V. And then it was RM and JK. Yeah. Okay. So I left the police station with V. Thank you. Oh, wait, I already said all that. Okay. Uh-huh. He lived further from the police station. If he lived further from the police station, would he still be there this much? Why had his parents settled down close to the police station? The world was so unjust and unfair to this foolishly good-hearted and sensitive kid. I placed my arm around V's shoulders and casually asked if he was hungry. V shook his head. Did the police officers welcome you back and buy you a meal? I asked again, but he didn't answer. The two of us walked in the sunlight, but an icy wind seemed to nip at my heart. I couldn't imagine how he must be feeling when I felt this chilly inside. His heart must have felt ripped and torn. Or does he have a heart left at all? How much anguish has he endured? I couldn't look him in his eyes, so I turned my glance upwards. An airplane was flying against a somewhat against the somewhat murky sky. I first saw the scar on Taehyung's back in RM's container. I couldn't bring myself to ask about it when he was smiling so broadly with his new t-shirt present. I had no parents, I had no memory of dad, and my memory of my mom stopped at the age of 7. I probably had more open wounds and scars regarding my family and childhood than anyone. People always said so easily that we need to overcome our wounds, embrace them, and accept them as part of our lives, that we need to reconcile with and forgive others to go on living. It wasn't that I wasn't aware of it. It wasn't that I didn't want to give it a try, but giving it a try didn't guarantee success. No one had taught me how. The world gave us new wounds even before the old... Oh, Jesus fucking Christ. This is the part of the book that fucking gets me every time.
Oh, God. You didn't even finish a sentence. I don't know what's happening.
Hold on. Because I know what's about to say, and every time I read it, it's just so fucking true. And it just makes me cry, because I'm just like, it's so true. Okay, just hold on. Just give me 2 seconds. God damn it. Oh, okay. Okay. It's fine. I'm fine. Okay. Okay.
I don't know what's happening.
No, it's just...
Stop crying! You're stressing me out!
Okay, look, it's just because I remember when I first read this, and it, like, hit me like a ton of bricks, because it's just so true. And it's sad, and it sucks, you know, but it's true. God damn it, why the hell did I not wear my waterproof mascara?
I don't know what's wrong with you. You should know by now.
But I didn't think I was going to get to this point in the book. I thought it was later in the book for some reason. Okay, let me just finish reading this part in the book.
Can you back up like a sentence?
Yeah, so I'll back up. Okay, just read it, don't think. Just read, don't think. Okay, I got this. I can do this. Just read, don't think. Okay. Okay. People always said so easily that we need to overcome our wounds, embrace them, and accept them as part of our lives, that we need to reconcile with and forgive others to go on living. It wasn't that I wasn't aware of it. It wasn't that I didn't want to give it a try, but giving it a try didn't guarantee success. No one had taught me how. The world gave us new wounds even before the old ones could heal. Surely, no one in the world can avoid getting hurt. I was aware of that. But do we really need to get hurt this deeply? For what? Why did these things happen to us? Okay. Stop. Damn it. And so when I first read that, and the reason why... Jesus Christ. So you're hiding. That's not fair. Stop it.
I'm good.
No, you're not. Okay, the reason why we might as well turn on the fucking chat right now, because I'm gonna take a second.
No, because they're gonna be crying.
Damn it. Okay. The reason why that part always gets me is because, and this is what I said the first time, when I inserted that one little clip of me actually, like, reacting to the notes, the sound wasn't the greatest quality, but I still was able to, like, salvage that clip. When I read that part, the reason why it got me is because it's like, obviously everyone's had something that they've dealt with in their lives, but like some people, it's just they just go through so much, and it's like, but why? Like, you could have like the sweetest woman in the entire world, but like they've endured so much hardship, and it's like, and it's just like, why does one person who's such an amazing person have to go through so much in their lifetime, when other people might just have a couple things minor that's happened, but pretty much their life is fine? Like, not that everyone should have to go through that, but it's so heartbreaking, because, you know, like, some people just, they go through so much heartbreak, and they have to endure so much in their lifetime, and it's just, why does so much hardship have to happen to one person or one family? You know, yet other families, it's just pretty much, they've just had such an amazing life for the most part. And it's just like, man, it's not fair. You know what I mean? Like, why can't things be more balanced? Why does one person or one family have to just endure so much? And it just really like struck me the first time I read that. So yeah, that's why I'm crying. I remember the first time I read that and how it affected me. I didn't think I was gonna get to that part. Jesus fucking Christ. I thought I was gonna get to that part later in the book. I didn't realize it was now. Well, at least it's towards the end of us wrapping up today, and not like at the beginning of the next day. So I mean, I guess there's that I can be thankful for. Okay. Why did these things happen to us? I'm okay. I can go alone, V said at the intersection. I know. I led the way. I'm really okay. See, I'm fine. V smiled. I didn't respond. He couldn't be okay. But once he admitted that he wasn't okay, he wouldn't be able to bear it. So he was just ignoring the truth. That became his habit. V followed me, putting up his hood. You're really not hungry? I asked him when we had walked up to the outdoor hallway that led to his house. He smiled that foolish smile and nodded. I stayed for a little and watched him walk towards his door, and I finally turned around. The path he was walking down and the path I walked through were both narrow and bleak. He and I were both alone. Okay, this is the last little bit before we're going to end for today. We are on the same day, and now it's Jin. So Hobie walked V to his house, but didn't go in his house with him. He turned and left, and V just walked into his house. And now we're on Jin. V's house was in one of the oldest buildings in the neighborhood. The paint was peeling off here and there, and weeds were growing out of cracks in the cement walls. It looked run down. I was waiting for V and Hobie in a small park on the hill behind the building. As it was on the slope, it overlooked the outdoor hallway to V's floor of the building. Hobie appeared from around the corner, leading into an alley in the distance. V was following him. His face wasn't quite visible because he had his hood pulled down tight. V and Hobie exchanged a few words at the mouth of the alley. V seemed to be trying to send Hobie home, and Hobie was saying he was fine. Hobie started to walk again first. The two came up to the front of the building without a word. Hobie climbed the stairs and stopped in front of V's door. He tapped on V's shoulder and made a gesture at him to go into the house. Then he turned around and started walking towards the exit. Tay stared at him from behind for a moment and reached out for the doorknob. I called Hobie at that moment when V began to open the door. After the dial tone rang 3 times, Hobie took out his phone in the middle of the hallway. Tay was stepping inside his house. Hobie, can you call V? Hobie stopped walking. I just saw him. I said I was planning a trip to the sea for all of us, and he should ask V to come along. Hobie laughed, saying of course V would come along. But just to make sure, can you ask him and let me know? I hung up hastily. This was the time. Hobie must go into V's house now. Hobie tilted his head sideways, looking at his phone screen, and turned around. Then he went into V's house through the still open door. V. I looked down at my palm. Blood was oozing out. Just when my legs started to give out and I was about to collapse, someone grabbed me from behind. Sunlight came in through the murky window. My sister was crying, and Hobie was standing there in silence. As usual, the floor was cluttered with dirty dishes, odds and ends, and blankets. Dad had already escaped the room before I realized it. The uncontrollable rage and sorrow that welled up when I flung myself at my dad were still fresh in my mind. I didn't know what held me back when I was about to stab him. I didn't know how to douse these raging flames inside me. I wanted to kill myself instead of Dad. If I could, I wanted to drop dead right then and there. I couldn't shed tears. I wanted to cry out loud, to kick and destroy everything and break down. But it all seemed beyond my control. Sorry, Hobie, I'm fine. You go ahead. My voice sounded dry and calm, contrary to my frantic mind. I sent Hobie home against his will and looked down at my palm. Blood was still coming out in drops. Instead of stabbing Dad, I'd smashed the bottle on the floor. The bottle had broken into pieces and cut my palm. The world spun and twirled when I closed my eyes. My brain froze. What should I do now? How should I live? After I regained consciousness, I found myself looking at RM's number. Even in the situation, or because of the situation, I was longing for RM all the more desperately. I wanted to confess to him. I almost killed Dad, who brought me into this world and who beat me every day. I almost killed him. No, I actually killed him. Countless times. I killed him countless times in my head. I wanted to kill him. I want to die. I don't know what to do. I'm lost. I just want to see you now. Don't cry. If you cry, I'm going to cry again.
Just give me a second.
What a part to end on for the day.
Okay, I'm good.
No, she's not.
Okay. Oh, wow. That happened.
We can turn back on the chat now. Don't spoil anything that's upcoming, please. We're turning back on the chat. Okay. Hi, guys.
Hi again.
I told you this wasn't going to be fun.
Guess this is a good time to say I have to pee.
You have to pee again?
Yes.
Jesus Christ. Email again, please. Oh, my email? Email is saywhatreacts.yt, like YouTube, saywhatreacts.yt@gmail. Yeah. It's a really, really heavy storyline, guys. Yeah. So, oh no, I think I got mascara. I think I got a mascara smudge on the book. Oh no. Good thing it has a cover that I can put back around it. Oh, we all had a cry session, by the way. I'm sorry. That was probably my fault from crying earlier. Virtual hug to everyone for sure. Definitely. Hello to everyone, by the way, that I haven't said hi to. Thank you, Ebony. I appreciate it. Oh. Is Caitlin alive? Yeah, she just peed. Or she's peeing. I love how realistic it is in the way that we see their struggles. Yeah, definitely. It's written, like, the notes are written really well. And this is why this is, like, something like this, although obviously I hope it ends up better, this is why they're going to be making it into, like, a movie. You know what I mean? Because it is such a good storyline. I mean, it's fucking rough, and it's, Jesus, it's hard to listen to, and yeah, it's written in a way you can relate. But it is such, like, the way it's told is very captivating, and, you know, you just want to help them, you know what I mean? So, like, I think it is, I'm very happy. Actually, I think it might be, it's like a series, I think is what it's doing. I don't know. This has apparently not every single note, but it has, like, from beginning to end, but it has all of the most important parts of the notes combined together so that you can read it and understand what's happening. And I've had a couple people, I think, send me the notes for Persona and Mot 7, which we'll obviously read when we're done with the book so that we can make sure that we've read all of them. So, yeah, and that's, yeah, exactly. They're, before you were crying, we were playing Guess the Song by Emoji. But yeah, so, and that is the thing. People, like, this is stuff, and this is why I think I started crying so much, is, you know, people do go through this kind of stuff. People have been abandoned by their mom and have had to grow up in orphanages. People have witnessed or possibly, you know, been a part of something so horrific that they can't even bear to think about that past incident. It's almost like a PTSD thing for them. People have grown up in abusive, you know, with abusive parents their entire lives that they just had to endure. You know, it's, you know, people grow up poor with sick parents that, you know, they can't pay their rent. What happens to someone when, you know, they can't pay their rent anymore, but yet, you know, where do they go? What happens to them? Do they just go to a homeless shelter at that point? You know, it's like, you know, what if they're sick? Like, if they have to be hospitalized, who pays for that hospital bill? Or are they allowed to be in the hospital if they're sick, but there's no one there to pay? Like, it's just, these are these are questions I have, you know. I literally was talking to Brian the other day, and I can't remember what jarred. I think you know, we saw two people walking across the street, and I could tell I think it was a mom and a son, but the son was fully grown and the mom was older, and I could tell something was off, and I think the son might have been mentally challenged. And I had said to him at that point, I said, what happens? And he was like, what are you talking about? I was like, obviously his mom's going to pass away one day. It'll happen. She's older. What happens to him? You know what I mean? And it's like, fuck. You think about those things.
I'm gonna need you to stop crying, man. You're stressing me out.
But it's true, you know, it's like...
I'm gonna need you to conceal, don't feel.
No, I'm not fucking Elsa. But it's true, though. It's like, these aren't things you think about on a regular basis, because they're not things you have to personally deal with. But they're just things that, you know, every now and then, like, I'll see something and I think about it, and you're just like, man, like, what happens? Like, what's gonna happen to that? He's a full-grown adult, but he's obviously mentally challenged and can't live on his own. What happens when his mom's no longer there to take care of him? He's not going to be able to pay his rent. Like, where does he go? You know, does he become on the streets? Like, does he become, like, a homeless person on the streets that people now see as some crazy weirdo on the streets because they don't know that, you know, his situation? I just, like... every now and then I'll think about, you know, like, I mean, that we were literally in a drive-thru at a Starbucks waiting to get to the window, and I just happened to watch these two people cross the street. And that's exactly what went through my mind. You know what I mean? Like, what's going to happen to him the day his mom's no longer around? It's just those, yeah, it's like these things happen, like fucked up things happen to real people every single day. And that's why stories like these are so, like, heavy, because they are relatable. Because although we may not be going through this, someone is, and it sucks, and it's awful. Yeah, so sorry I'm crying so much.
Well, I hope you all enjoyed this.
I need another tissue. This is soaking wet.
Jesus Christ.
But yeah, so, okay.
Those itches.
I'm such a fucking sap, I swear. Okay. I don't even know if I have any mascara left. Okay. So. Okay. Alright. Okay. I'm fine, guys. It's fine. It's just, you know, things that pop into your head. Okay. So. Yeah, just like Jesus. Okay. What was I gonna say? Yeah, we're gonna go. Jesus Christ. I still do need to edit and post a video for you guys. For today. What time is it? Yeah, I should be posting my next, my answer. I believe it's the time to post my next album listen, which is Answer, but it will have Outro Tear as the first track, and then it'll go into the rest of the tracks on Answer I have not seen yet, or I have not heard yet. Remember, I recorded all of that like a month ago, so just keep in mind that I recorded that reaction the night before or morning of Bang Bang Con, and yeah, so I'm probably going to work on editing that today and uploading it. I will also probably work on, I'm going to cut out C from my Her reaction so I could actually have that back on YouTube, because Big Hit are being assholes and they won't let me react to C, even when I put copyright breaks in it, which copyright should not be able to be detected with all the breaks I put in that goddamn song. But it still didn't work and they still completely blocked it worldwide. So, yeah, so I'm probably going to edit out C so that the her reaction, Love Yourself Her, can still be up. And if it can just still be up, I'll do that. If I have to re-upload it, I'll do that as well. But I'm going to remove the C reaction and then maybe just put it on Patreon just for if someone wants to see it. I'll just put in the description if you want to see the reaction to C, just click on the link in the description and I'll probably just post it on Patreon so that there's, so that there was a God, I look like shit. Oh my Jesus Christ. But yes, so
We're gonna go
next week we will be back with the rest of the book
on Sunday.
We will be doing a live first at the normal time Sunday. Remember, next Sunday is the live, not Saturday. So next Saturday I'm doing something with my family at my house. So, and it starts at 1, so right when I'd be going live, so it's just not going to happen. So next Sunday will be the normal live with the unboxings and giveaways, and after that, we will do the rest of the notes, and then, and if we can also include depending on how much time we will have been on live for.
Talk.
Yeah, because I was only expecting to be live for 2 hours today, and it's been way more hours today. What do you mean, how much we talk? I'm reading a book.
Live.
Oh, that. Okay, yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yes.
So, yeah. You got so close, I thought you were giving me a kiss on the cheek.
Okay.
I was like, oh, okay. She does it all the time, so it wouldn't be anything, unexpected.
Sometimes I just like to be given affection.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. Everyone needs, cuddles. So we will be live next Sunday with our normal live, followed by we'll go offline. And did you touch my boob?
Yes, I went like that on accident.
Oh, that's okay. Followed by the rest of the book and possibly the other 2 notes.
The colors of this.
Isn't it pretty? No, I have to show you. I think it's version S. Oh, it's beautiful. There's blues and stuff in it too, blues and pinks. It's gorgeous. Anyway, so yes, I've heard all of their discography now, except for the stuff that they have on SoundCloud and except for their solo stuff. I've heard all of it, all of the album discography. I should probably yeah. Okay, I think that's everything. If you're talking about my cat's not
evil. No, they're
evil.
talking about TXT.
Oh, okay. Well, don't say stuff that might spoil something for me in the future. What are you guys doing, man? Okay, so...
We gonna bounce.
Did you just say we gonna bounce because someone just talked about JK's bouncing D?
I did not see that, so no.
Oh, I thought that you were like, we gonna bounce. I thought that's what was happening. I mean, if you missed that clip, I feel bad for you because it was the thing that happened. It happened. So... What the fuck was I just about to say?
Fun fact, you guys might see new hair color next week because I might dye my hair. I don't know what color. I'm going to the salon because I can't do it by myself.
So it's... Oh, so you're getting an actual... So you're going to have to lighten it first and then dye it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, shit. Just wait, hold on. Give us that, options at least so we...
It's not blonde.
Thank God.
It's never going to be blonde.
Don't do anything blonde or pink because even
it's not going to be pink either.
Because against your skin, that wouldn't look good.
It's not blonde or it's not pink, but it will be a color. I just don't know when I'm gonna go.
Fun times. Yeah. Okay. So.
Bye.
I know there was something I was gonna say and I don't remember what the fuck it was. And it's driving me crazy right now. Oh no. Shit. What was I gonna say?
I don't know.
Fuck. Hell, I don't know, guys. I'm sorry. Okay, so we're gonna go. And, yeah. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And I guess that's it. We're gonna go now. Love you guys. And I will see you guys Oh, yeah, that happened. That happened, Monk. That happened. We're going to see you guys next Sunday for our weekly live with the giveaways and unboxings, okay? Bye. Love you guys. Thank you for hanging out with us. Thank you for crying with us. Sorry I made you cry. Love you guys. Bye.
Oh, I didn't hit the button. Oh, I still didn't hit the button.